Now the Senate will come to order. The senators will please take their seats. Those persons not entitled to the privilege of the floor will please retire to the gallery. The senators and all in attendance will stand and be led in prayer by the Reverend Eric Kalinga from His Village Church in Culpeper, Virginia. Following the prayer, all will remain standing and be led in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America by Senate Page Zach Simon.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, to all senators, Lieutenant Governor, Madam Clerk, staff, Senator Pages, and thank you for the opportunity and the privilege to have us here. Before I pray, please allow me to make a few remarks. And this chamber in the state capitol is literally a symbol of democracy and freedom. Born and raised in Africa, I have seen the damage caused by oppression and dictatorship. On July 4th, 2016, I had the privilege to become an American citizen, and it is an honor that I really value. So I'm very humbled to be in this place with you guys today. Let us pray. God Almighty, creator of heaven and earth, let your name be glorified. You alone deserve all the praise. Thank you for your love for us, and thank you for the freedom that we have in this country. We ask for your kingdom to come, O Lord. Let the government of heaven come and rule this place. Father, I pray that this chamber will seek to do your will more than anything else. Proverbs chapter 24, verse 3 and 4 says, "Through wisdom a house is built, by understanding it is established. By knowledge the rooms are filled with all precious and pleasant riches." Father God, I ask for you to give every member represented here in this Senate chamber wisdom, knowledge, and understanding to make decisions and legislations that will help build rich, stable, and strong communities for your people. Father, I pray for reconciliation. Lord, I ask that every member in this chamber will be reconciled first with you and then with one another. I pray for oneness in this place. I pray that every decision that they make, Father God, will be for the people and will bring glory to you. I pray that the people will love and forgive each other. In Philippians chapter 2, verse 3 and 4 says, "Don't be selfish. Don't try to impress others. Be humble, thinking of others as better than yourself. Do not look to your own interest, but take an interest in others too." Father, I pray that this passage of Scripture serve as a reminder to everyone in this chamber. Lord, I pray for humility, selflessness, and more importantly, I pray that they will love one another as you have loved them. Father, I ask that you preserve the heritage of this country. God, protect the values and foundations upon which this country was built. Father, we pray that every member in this place will commit themselves to protecting those values and foundations. I ask for a special blessing upon our President, his cabinet, the Vice President, the Congress, the Supreme Court, and all the senators here today, the House of Delegates, the Governor, the Lieutenant Governor, Madam Clerk, all the staff members, and everyone who has answered the call to serve our great Commonwealth and country. Father, I pray that you will protect and bless their homes, their families. Father, we ask, and we say this, we say thank you for the sacrifices that they have made to serve your people. It is in Jesus' mighty name I pray. Amen. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Clerk will call the roll. All those in attendance will please record their vote aye. Clerk will close the roll.
You have a quorum, Mr. President. Senate Journal for Wednesday, February 5th, 2020.
Senator from Northern Fairfax, Senator Howe, moves that the reading of the journal be waived. All in favor of waiving the reading of the journal will record their vote aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their vote? Clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 34, noes 6.
Ayes 34, no 6. The reading of the journal is waived. Clerk report any communication from the House of Delegates. Senior Senator from Fairfax, Senator Saslaw.
Mr. President, I move that we waive the reading of the communications from the House of Delegates.
Thank the Senator. The question is, shall the reading of communication from the House of Delegates be waived? All in favor of waiving the reading will record their vote aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their vote? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 35, noes 3.
Ayes 35, noes 3. The reading of the communication from the House of Delegates is waived. The clerk will report any communication from the governor.
We do not have any, sir.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Now comes the time in the morning hour where we have the privilege and the honor of recognizing our distinguished guests with us here in the Senate gallery. I will give my daily reminder that the way this will proceed is that a senator will stand up, recognize an individual or group. I will then offer the warm welcome of the Senate, and at the very end, we will all applaud together. I'd like to begin by calling on the senator from Northern Chesapeake, Senator Spruill.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Senator.
I have two introductions.
Thanks, Senator. You have the floor.
First, Mr. President, I want you to please greet Norfolk Redevelopment Housing Authority. This authority, President, has really turned Norfolk around as far as the thing that we've seen, the way it used to look, the way Norfolk looking now. They have done a great job on that. So I ask you to please give them a warm welcome.
I thank the Senator. Would Raytron White and our friends from the Norfolk Redevelopment Housing Authority please rise in the gallery if you are able? Thank you all so much for joining us here today. Thank you for the tremendous work that you are doing in Norfolk. I got to see it firsthand at the opening of the Tenant Management Corporation, and we are grateful to you for your leadership, inspirational stories coming out of Norfolk. So you're welcome back here anytime. Particularly my friend Raytron White, thank you for all that you do. I would ask everyone to please join me in extending the warmest welcome of the Senate to our distinguished guests. Senator from Northern Chesapeake, Senator Spruill.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, secondly, we have one of our Paige Casey, her mother's here, Lisa Hicks Thomas. You might remember that name, who has done a great job for the city, a great job for the state for a while, working for the governor, and the job that she has there. And one time, Mr. President, we have almost tagged her to run for governor, but she wouldn't do it because there was not enough money in it for her to do that. And she, as my friend, has done a great job. Will you please welcome her, Mr. President?
I thank the Senator. Would Lisa Hicks Thomas please rise in the gallery? And you're already risen. Lisa, it is so wonderful to see you. You're a friend to all of us here in this chamber. We appreciate all that you do at the state level and the city level. You've been a true leader in this Commonwealth for many years and will be for many more years to come. And know that Senate Paige Casey is your pride and joy. So I know she is also very excited that you're here today. So I would ask everyone to please join me and extend the warmest welcome of the Senate to our distinguished friend, Lisa Hicks Thomas. Senator from Spotsylvania, Senator Reeves.
Thank you, Mr. President. Rise for an introduction.
Thank you, Senator. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. This morning's invocation was brought to you by one of my pastors, Mr. President, who I'm very proud of, who you heard his testimony, Pastor Eric Kalinga. He is a pastor at his village church in Culpeper. He is accompanied by his wife, Candace, their children, Caden, Karsten, and Carriana Kalinga, as well as some of his flock, and that would be the Moss family, and there's quite a few of them up there, so I won't break them all down for you, but if you could give the warm welcome to Pastor Eric Kalinga, his family, and the Moss family, I would greatly appreciate that, sir.
I thank the Senator. Would Reverend Eric Kalinga, the Kalinga family, and the Moss family please rise in the gallery if you are able? Thank you all so much for joining us here today. Reverend, thank you for that very powerful and moving prayer and for your testimony. I think it reminds us of the values that we all should hold very dear. And thank you to your family for your leadership and service, and to the Moss family. We are very appreciative and very grateful to each one of you. We echo the eloquent, generous words of Senator from Spotsylvania, Senator Reeves, and I would ask everyone to please join me in extending the warmest welcome of the Senate to our distinguished guests.
Mr. President, I have one more introduction with a green sheet, if I may.
Senator has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Also in the gallery today is, I often call her my other mother. She's Miss Shirley Johnson with the Fredericksburg City Schools Head Start program, who came by to say hello, and she came to actually just check on me more importantly, and she always has that nurturing hug she gives me. But if you can give Miss Shirley Johnson and the Fredericksburg City Schools Head Start program ladies the warm welcome of the Senate.
I thank the Senator. Would our wonderful friend Shirley Johnson and anyone from the Fredericksburg City Schools Head Start program please rise in the gallery if you're able. Thank you all so much for joining us once again this year in the Senate. Thank you for all the great work you do in Fredericksburg to give a brighter future to our young children and to their families and to give them hope and opportunity. We're grateful to every single one of you, Shirley. You're an extraordinary woman, and thank you for all that you do, and a friend to Senator Reeves and to so many of us. So we're grateful to you. We wish you nothing but the best in the future, and I would ask everyone to please join me in extending the warmest welcome of the Senate to our distinguished guests. Senator from King George, Senator Stewart.
Thank you, Mr. President. Rise for an introduction.
Thank you, Senator. You have the floor.
Mr. President, we have a very special visitor in the gallery today, and her name is Olivia Vogel. And I happen to know from good authority that Olivia is a pretty expert fairy house builder. And I've heard stories about that and the intricacies of the fairy houses that she's built and the observations of little fairies, and she's just a delightful, adorable young lady who has a very vivid imagination, and she's also the daughter of my seatmate. And I would ask that you offer her the very warm welcome of the Senate.
I thank the Senator. Would our friend Olivia Vogel please rise in the gallery if you're able? Olivia, I think that says it all. We're so happy to see you. I know no one's happier to see you than your wonderful mom, Senator Vogel, and we welcome you here anytime as a part of this family and give our best to your wonderful family, to the Vogel family. So let's do it twice. Let's give Olivia Vogel a round of applause. Senator from Portsmouth, Senator Lucas.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise for the purposes of two introductions.
I thank the Senator. You have the floor.
Well, thank you, Mr. President. First of all, I'd like to recognize a group from Danville. It's the Honorable Sherman Saunders, who is a member of the Danville City Council. And also there are others with him. Councilman James Buckner from Danville, member of the City Council. Ken Larkin, City Manager. And Mr. President, they've been here almost all week long, and so I think they really deserve the very warm welcome of the Senate because they've come down and supported Senate Bill number 36. So with that, Mr. President, I would really appreciate it if you would extend to them the very warm welcome of the Senate.
I thank the Senator. Would our friends Sherman, James, and Ken from the Danville City Council and City Government please rise? You're already risen. Thank you all so much for being here. Thank you for the tremendous work that you do in Danville and around the Commonwealth of Virginia. You are true leaders, and we are grateful for all that you do in that wonderful city with such great history, but also such a wonderful future ahead of it. So we echo the eloquent, generous words of Senator from Portsmouth, Senator Lucas, and I would ask everyone to please join me in extending the warmest welcome of the Senate to our leaders from Danville.
Thank you, Mr. President. Now, Mr. President, I also have a second group that's seated in the gallery today. It's the Training Alumni Association of the Virginia Board of People with Disabilities. And Mr. President, we're happy to welcome them to the Senate today. The association is a program of the board that is designed to facilitate grassroots advocacy, and is made up of partners in policymaking and the Youth Leadership Academy. Mr. President, I would really appreciate it if you would also extend to this very distinguished group the welcome of the Senate.
I thank the Senator. Would our friends from the Training Alumni Association, the Virginia Board People with Disabilities, please rise in the gallery if you are able. Thank you all so much for joining us here today in your Capitol and the Senate. And thank you also for the tremendous work that each one of you does to support our families and those who are otherly abled. And we are so grateful that you give them hope and inspiration in their lives. And so we echo the eloquent and generous words of the Senator from Portsmouth. And I would ask everyone to please join me in extending the warmest welcome of the Senate to our distinguished guest. Senator from Washington, Senator Pillion.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise for the purpose of an introduction.
I thank the Senator. You have the floor.
Hey, thank you. I know. I took the mic one more time from her. All right. Mr. President, in the gallery today, we have members of the 27th Annual Leadership Washington County, led by our good friend, Barry Firebaugh. I know you met with him yesterday. I ask that we give them the warmest of welcomes from the Senate.
I thank the Senator. Would our friends from Leadership Washington County please rise in the gallery if you are able? Thank you all so much for being here today. Thank you for your tremendous leadership in Washington County. I know that Senator Pillion is particularly proud of each one of you, and I had the opportunity to meet with you and such wonderful leaders in the private sector, civic sector, great small business owners and entrepreneurs, and also people take care of our young children as well. So we are grateful to you. I'm ordering a basket from you down there in Washington. And I'm also bringing my kids to come play at your small business. So thank you guys so much. I would ask everyone to please join me in sending the warmest welcome of the Senate to our friends from Leadership Washington County. Senior Senator from Virginia Beach, Senator DeSteph.
Mr. President, I rise for the purpose of an introduction.
Thank the Senator. You have the floor.
On behalf of myself, the junior senator from Virginia Beach, and the senator from Spotsylvania, today we have been joined by Geico Associates from Virginia Beach and Fredericksburg. Geico Associates are joining us for their lobby day as part of their company's political awareness campaign. Geico employs more than 6,500 associates in the Commonwealth. They pay more than $476 million in payroll. They remit more than $28.2 million in premium taxes, and they're privileged to insure more than 1.29 million vehicles in the Commonwealth. Mr. President, with that, I'd love to give, oh, wait a minute, I almost forgot one thing. Their associates have given more than 4,300 hours of volunteer time here in the Commonwealth. With that, Mr. President, I'd like to offer them the warmest welcome in the Senate.
I thank the Senator. Would our friends from Geico Associates of Virginia Beach please rise in the gallery if you are able? And Fredericksburg, also here. Thank you all so much for joining us here today. We are grateful for your presence and for your advocacy and also for the tremendous work of Geico and all the folks you employ and insure. And so thank you for what you do to contribute to the life of the Commonwealth of Virginia. Echo the generous and eloquent words of the senior senator from Virginia Beach. And I would ask everyone to please join me in extending the warmest welcome of the Senate to our distinguished guests. Senator from Northwestern Fairfax, Senator Boysko.
I rise for an introduction, Mr. President.
Senator has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Today in the gallery, we have members of the Virginia Values Coalition. And the Virginia Values Coalition members come from all walks of life here in Virginia. They believe that protecting our LGBTQ community should be protected from discrimination. Members are faith leaders, business leaders, parents, law enforcement officers, veterans, and people from all political ideologies coming together to make Virginia a safer place for all people to live, work, and play. And I ask that you give them a warm welcome. Thank you.
I thank the Senator. Would our friends from the Virginia Values Coalition please rise to the gallery if you are able? Thank you all so much for joining us here today in your Senate and in your Capitol, and thank you for your tremendous leadership in making Virginia more fair and a place that values equality and supports everyone, no matter their walk of life, who they love, how they identify, and we're grateful to each one of you for your leadership in that regard to make sure we're inclusive here in the Commonwealth. So I would ask everyone to please join me in extending the warmest welcome of the Senate to our friends and leaders from the Virginia Values Coalition. the junior senator from Chesterfield, Senator Hashmi.
Good morning, Mr. President.
Morning,
I rise for the purpose of an introduction.
You have the floor.
I'm excited to share that today actually represents the first annual Asian and Pacific Islander Civic Engagement Day. The purpose of the day is to make a difference in the lives of Virginia's Asian and Pacific Islander community through advocacy and engagement. We're joined today by the many members of the Asian community. We have advocates and a guest of the Governor's Virginia Asian Advisory Board, the Asian American Society of Central Virginia, and the Asian Americans Impacting Virginia Group. I just want to quickly introduce the chairs of these three very important organizations. May Navar is chair of the Governor's Virginia Asian Advisory Board. Mahmood Chaudhry represents the Asian American Society of Central Virginia, and Laura Foe is chair of the Asian Americans Impacting Virginia. They are going to be hosting a wonderful reception this evening at 6 p.m. at the Bank of America. Once again, I fervently hope that our committee meetings will end in time so that we can join them at the reception this evening, and I ask you to give the warm welcome of the Senate. Thank you.
I thank the senator. Would our friends and leaders from the Asian American Pacific Islander Civic Engagement Day contingent please rise in the gallery if you're able. Thank you all so much for all that you do to lift up not only the Asian American community here in the Commonwealth, which is a very significant community, but also really around the country. Your leaders in many different fields, and we're grateful for your presence and for the strength of your leadership. And we look forward to you doing wonderful things to come here in the future. And also to that great reception you have tonight. We all hope we'll be able to make it out. So I would ask everyone to please join me in extending the warmest welcome of the Senate to our distinguished guests. Senator from James City County, Senator Norman.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise for purposes of an introduction.
I thank the Senator. You have the floor.
Mr. President, I'll extend an apology to the Senate because the introduction is going to be just a little bit longer than I would normally do, but I think it warrants a very special opportunity. Delegate Cox and I had the privilege of co-chairing the 2019 commemoration, which was known as Americans Evolution. And I am proud to share with you that each one of you will be receiving a copy of the 2019 annual report and a set of commemorative coins from the 400th anniversary. I would like to thank the Senate for your support of the 2019 commemoration American Evolution. Legislation was passed in 2013, designating the Jamestown-Yorktown Foundation as the lead executive branch agency to plan that commemoration. As the past chair of the Jamestown-Yorktown Foundation, I'm very pleased to share with you that we have a new executive director who is known to many of you, and that is Christy Coleman. Christy came to us as the CEO of the American Civil War Museum here in Richmond, where she served since 2008. She is succeeding Phil Emerson, who I believe has been with the foundation just a tad over 34 years. But we are excited about having Christy with us. There was a significant amount of investments that were made by the Commonwealth in the 2019 commemoration, and I'd like to share some highlights with you. There were over 305 local and state and national partners from every corner of the Commonwealth that participated. Between 2016 and 2019, there were 363 commemorative events that were held. There were over 2.6 million individuals who participated or attended a 2019 commemorative event. There were 25 signature events, which ranged from the first African landing down at Fort Monroe to the first English Thanksgiving. For those of you that are sensitive to finances, I would say that we leveraged the Commonwealth's investment, which was about $23 million over 5 years. The commemoration was able to generate $4.3 million in contributions from 42 private donors. This was the first digital commemoration, and our global media reached extraordinary numbers, resulting in, if you can believe this, 28 billion traditional and social media impressions. The preliminary results from the combined economic impact from the commemoration and visitor spending since July of 2016 is projected to be $144 million, and that's a pretty good return on investment. State and local tax revenues contributed another $7 million. For those of you that have been around since 2007, I know that some of you got exhausted from my comments on the 2007 commemoration, but 2019 has been extraordinary. And as I was looking through my memorabilia, I found a pin from 2007, if you can believe that. And it's not quite as old as Senator Saslaw, but it's getting there. Joining Christy Coleman in the gallery today are several key individuals that I would appreciate, Mr. President, you extending a collective welcome to the Senate of Virginia. They include Ben Dendy, who has, I think, been on the foundation since 1699, Frank Atkinson, George Martin, and Jackie Stone, who've done a tremendous amount through McGuire Woods. Paul Kuntz, who was responsible for raising many of the private dollars that came in, and many of you know him as formerly working with Dominion Energy. A very dear and long-term friend of mine, the Honorable Gene Zeidler, who's from Williamsburg and a former mayor of Williamsburg, is with us. The former Senator Mary Margaret Whipple, which many of you recall. Former Delegate Glenn Oder, who is also up there, who is the man that is overseeing and revitalizing Fort Monroe. The real captain of the ship of the commemoration, Kathy Spangler. She was a commemoration executive director. Nancy Rodriguez, who many of you have known, who was the former in the administration of the McAuliffes. And Cindy Gray, who was the commemoration deputy director. Thank you for allowing me to offer an extended introduction. But, Mr. President, if you would be so generous to send a very warm but an appreciative welcome to the Senate of Virginia for the leaders of the 2019 commemoration, which did an extraordinary job.
I thank the Senator. Would our leaders from the 2019 commemoration American Evolution please rise in the gallery if you are able? Thank you all so much for your tremendous leadership. This was such a distinguished group of leaders in the Commonwealth of Virginia who came together over the course of course, many years to plan something that was on display not just for Virginia and not just for America, but really for the world. And you did us all very proud with the way that you executed and brought everyone together. It was really a healing moment after 400 years. And we like to say that this year is the first year of the next 400 years, and you have set us all out on a really wonderful foot, taking the best of our history, being honest about some of the worst of it, but helping us all to rise in the process. And so we echo the eloquent and generous words of the Senator from James City County, who I know was very much involved. I also see my friend Governor Hager, who is up there, who's an extraordinary leader, and we're honored to have him back here as well. And so thank you all for making Virginia the shining light and the oftentimes political darkness that we know it could be. And so we will revere you for what you've done for many years to come, and our children and grandchildren will be grateful for your contributions. I would ask everyone to please join me in sending the absolute warmest welcome of the Senate to our distinguished leaders of 2019 commemoration American Evolution. The Senator from George Mason, Senator McPike.
Good afternoon, Mr. President.
You got them both in one. It's all right, Mr. President. I rise for the purpose of an introduction.
The senator has the floor.
On behalf of the senator from Spotsylvania, Senator Reeves, and myself, I'd like to ask you, Mr. President, to provide a welcome to a group from George Mason University that's here today that Madam President Ann Holden kindly brought down for Mason's Lobby Day. I had the pleasure of speaking with two of the students, Amanda and Dawson, for a little bit, as well as the whole group, about their experiences at George Mason, and continue to be fascinated by their insight. They're interested in the legislative process. George Mason's international reach and diversity, frankly, is one of the reasons why I'm proud to be one of Mason's alumnus. And I'd like you to welcome this fantastic group to the Capitol, Mr. President, and thank you for the time. And the new Senate district.
I'm not moving you, Senator. I thank you very much. Would our friends and leaders from George Mason University please rise in the gallery if you are able? Thank you all so much for joining us once again on George Mason Lobby Day. Thank you for your tremendous leadership at such a great institution of higher learning, which, as Senator McPike, your distinguished alumnus, has said, really has an international reach, the largest public research university in the Commonwealth of Virginia. Sits right there in Fairfax County. And so we're all patriots today and every day. Thank you to President Holton, who's an extraordinary leader. And I would ask everyone to please join me in extending the warmest welcome of the Senate to our patriots from George Mason University. Do any other senators wish to be recognized for purposes of an introduction? Is there any other business to come in the morning hour? Seeing none, the clerk will call the calendar.
Senate calendar for Thursday, February 6, 2020, unfinished business, Senate. Senate Bill 582 is passed the House with amendment.
Senator from Northern Fairfax, Senator Howe.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that we concur with the House recommendation. And speaking to that,
Senator has the floor.
This is the bill that the conformity bill dealing with the tax codes, and the amendment is strictly technical. If you look at it, you just see they've corrected a code section.
Thank the senator. Do any other senators wish to be heard regarding Senate Bill 582? Seeing none, the question is, shall the Senate concur in the House amendment? All in favor of the motion will record their vote aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their vote? Clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 40, noes 0.
Ayes 40, noes 0. The Senate concurs with the House amendment.
Uncontested calendar, Senate bills on third reading.
Senior Senator from Fairfax, Senator Sasslaw.
Mr. President, I move that the Senate bills on third reading on the uncontested calendar, pages 2 through 6, that's Senate Bill 378 through Senate Bill 1002, be placed on their final passage in a block after the clerk, on their final passage in a block. Any senator desiring to remove a bill from the block, please do so after the clerk has read the number of the bill.
Thank the senator. The question is, shall the Senate bills on the uncontested calendar, third reading, pages 2 through 6, Senate Bill 378 through Senate Bill 1002 be placed upon their final passage in the block, with the understanding that any senator desiring a bill be removed from the block will do so after the clerk has read the number of the bill. All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The motion is agreed to. The bills are before us in the block. The clerk will read the number of the bills.
Senate Bill 378, Senate Bill 440, Senate Bill 541, Senate Bill 602, Senate Bill 603, Senate Bill 670, Senate Bill 683, Senate Bill 840, Senate Bill 870, Senate Bill 875, Senate Bill 1002.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Question is, shall the bills in the block pass? All in favor of passage of the bills will record their vote aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their vote? Clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 40, noes 0.
Ayes 40, noes 0. The bills in the block pass.
Regular calendar, Senate bills on third reading. Senate Bill 404, a bill relating to health insurance short-term limited duration medical plans.
The junior senator from Chesterfield, Senator Hashmi.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the passage of SB 404 and speaking to the bill.
Senator has the floor.
SB 404 is designed to protect our consumers against short-term, limited-duration health care plans. These health care plans can be used for up to 6 months, but research and our understanding of these plans indicates that they are really not supportive for the general consumer. These plans, STLDs, are not subject to ACA protections. They can deny coverage for pre-existing conditions. They charge higher premiums based on age and gender, and they can charge high deductibles and cost sharing. We know that they are effectively disruptive to our general health care needs in Virginia. STLDs in Virginia also don't have to cover prescription drugs, maternity, or mental health and substance use disorder benefits, and they don't have to comply with Virginia coverage mandates because most of these plans are sold by out-of-state associations. With the recommendations made by Senator Barker, I recommend that we pass this bill.
Thank the Senator. For what purpose is Senator from Henrico? Senator Donovan, rise.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise to speak to the bill.
Senator has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I wish to speak against this bill. These short-term policies are not ever designed to be long-term health plans. That's exactly why they're called short-term policies. They fill a niche in the market for people who are trapped in between open enrollment opportunities that can be 11 months if they have an episode that causes them to fall off of their regular plan. These plans are very important to the people who would go without health insurance without them. When you make them have to renew that plan again in 3 months or 6 months, as it has now been amended, you force them to undergo another process for underwriting, which may cause them to have increased premiums for the second half of the re-enrollment. And this is, these bills have been around, these plans have been around for a very long time, and they are now trying to be conformed to the Affordable Care Act, which is not working for a lot of our constituents. It is a mistake to change these. In fact, the only reason it has to be changed is because the federal government made a change that allowed the Bureau of Insurance to change this last year. And so now we're going to supersede and intervene for political reasons that are not in the best interest of our constituents. And again, we have Big Brother legislation going through here that is telling our constituents they're not smart enough or clever enough or don't know how to run their budgets well enough to actually choose a plan that is different than the forced plans from the Affordable Care Act. I hope you will vote against this bill in favor of your constituents.
Do any other senators wish to be heard regarding Senate Bill 404? Seeing none, the question is, shall Senate Bill 404 pass? All in favor of the motion will record their vote aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their vote? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 20, noes 20.
Ayes 20, noes 20. The chair votes aye. The bill passes.
Senate Bill 571, a bill relating to visitation petition of grandparents.
Senator from Henrico, Senator Donovan.
Thank you, Mr. President. Speak to the bill.
Senator has the floor.
I will move that we pass this bill today. This is the bill we spoke about yesterday that actually will give judges a few more considerations. It does not grant visitation at all to grandparents. That's left in the, the reliable hands of our judges who have very good discretion. But it would allow the opportunity to consider something more than it will be a detriment to the child, that you have to prove that it will be a detriment to the child in order for that grandparent to have visitation. This is only in the instances where that grandparent's own child, the parent of the children that are in question, have been removed from their lives. And so I hope that you will pass this bill.
Thank the senator. Do any other senators wish to be heard regarding Senate Bill 571? Seeing none, the question is, shall Senate Bill 571 pass? All in favor of the motion will record their vote aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their vote? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 36, noes 4.
Ayes 36, noes 4. Senate Bill 571 passes.
Senate Bill 868, a bill relating to prohibited discrimination, public accommodations, employment, housing, and credit, causes of action, sexual orientation, and gender identity.
Senator from Alexandria, Senator Ebbett.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that SB 868 pass. And speaking to the motion,
Senator, has the floor.
First, I'd like to extend thanks to the senior senator from Richmond and the senator from Northwest Fairfax County for their contributions and their bills that were included with this legislation. And it really amazes me that I'm here today, because the first time I came to Richmond was 30 years ago or so, and I was in this very chamber sitting up there somewhere, and there were 8 of us lobbying for LGBT rights, and really from being targeted by the state for who we were and who we loved. And we didn't get very far. And I think it's important to know that everyone in this chamber knows someone who's gay or lesbian or even transgender. And I don't know if it's your daughter or your son, your sister or brother, your niece or your nephew, a work colleague or a friend. They may not acknowledge it to you, but you know someone like that in your life. And if you've never walked to work with your boss like I have and been told, isn't it great that we don't have any fags that work with us, you know what it's like to fear employment discrimination. And I want to just briefly explain what the Virginia Values Act does. This modernizes existing Virginia law to protect LGBTQ people from discrimination in their daily lives. It creates new protections for Virginians in employment and public accommodations like restaurants, shops, and other public spaces. And it sends a message that the Commonwealth is a safe and welcoming place for all people. And in many portions of the Act, it doesn't just protect gay people. It protects veterans, it protects people of color, it protects people of different religions. It adds a public accommodation section to the code that has never been there. We're one of 5 states in the United States, a formerly segregated state, that does not require that services be offered to all Virginians. And that is the bill, and I renew my motion that the bill pass.
Thank the senator. For what purpose is Senator from Lynchburg, Senator Peake rise?
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. I ask if the patron would yield for a question.
Will the senator yield?
Yes, I'll yield.
Senator yields. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm looking at lines 119 through 121, where it defines the term gender identity. And my question to the patron is it this statute that the person does not need to undergo any type of physical surgery or hormone therapy to qualify under that definition in the bill?
Yeah, Senator has the floor.
I believe that's correct, sir. While most transgender individuals do go through therapy, hormone therapy, or eventually have surgery, there are plenty that are not yet there, but most would have undergone them.
Further question?
Then a further question, if I may. Yes.
Senator yield for further question?
Yes, I yield.
Senator yield, you have the floor.
And then my question to the patron. So that and that's when we go to the rest of the definition. So we are basing, for purposes of this statute and attorney's fees and damages and all of those things, it really boils down to the appearance of that individual.
Well, it's
Senator has the floor.
It's the identity and appearance. That's correct. I mean, I don't know if the gentleman is trying to capture something else, but if someone is a transgender individual, they live as who they were born as, and they look that way. I don't know if you're expecting sudden changes or something, but it's pretty clear to me. If you see someone who's identifies as a man or a woman, they tend to make it pretty clear.
Further question? No.
Thanks. Okay.
Thank you. For what purpose is Senator from Northwestern Fairfax? Senator Boysko rise.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Speaking to the bill.
Senator has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to thank the senator from Alexandria for being the champion on this issue for decades now. He's really, put himself out there at a time when other people were afraid, and has been a real pioneer. And I want to say thank you to that. I happen to be the parent of a member of the LGBT community, and it's amazing when your child comes to you and tells you that they are in love with somebody, and your mom, when she finds out, says, well, tell her not to tell anybody because, it's going to be really hard. That's no way to live. When we have mothers and fathers, brothers and sisters, grandmothers and grandfathers who are afraid for the safety and security, for the well-being of their children, we're better than that. And I'm so excited today that we are going to make a really positive change for those folks. And again, I want to renew my thanks to the senator for being the champion on this, and for the Virginia Values folks for being champions on this and being willing to stand up and speak out even when it's a fearful and terrifying thing to do, to show people who you are. Thank you for doing that, and I look forward to voting for this bill. Thanks.
Thank the senator. For what purpose is Senator from Roanoke County? Senator Suderline rise.
Mr. President, to speak briefly to the bill.
Senator has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think this bill has a lot of good provisions in it regarding fair housing and regarding public employment. For the last 5 sessions, I've worked with Senator from Alexandria, voted for the senator, now senior senator from Richmond, and former Congressman Wexton's bills on those subjects. I fear, though, the public accommodation provision, I don't think it's the patron's intention, but I have very bad concerns about things that might be happening down the road with this. Also, the inability to get some of the protections that I had hoped we'd incorporate yesterday. So unfortunately, I won't be able to support the fair housing provision and the state hiring provisions that I've supported for every year I've been here. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank the senator. For what purpose, Senator from Fauquier? Senator Vogel rise.
Mr. President, speaking to the motion.
Senator has the floor.
Mr. President, for years and years, we have seen this legislation and similar legislation come forward. And with every year, it generates less and less controversy. I think as we become more and more enlightened and more appreciative of the struggles of some of our friends and those we care about. And so I think that it's certainly time that we embrace equality for everybody in the Commonwealth of Virginia. And we talk a lot about equality. And if you're going to truly say it and mean it, then that means equality for everybody in the Commonwealth of Virginia. And I understand that we considered some amendments yesterday, and my view was the underlying bill itself addressed those concerns, the concerns of the church. And I didn't rise to speak to that yesterday, but I will say that I support the senator from Alexandria's work on this, and like the senator from Roanoke County and others have voted for these bills in the past, and I'm proud to support this one and proud to see it pass in Virginia. And for those of you who have concerns, I will just say I think right now there are more than 20 states who have nearly identical language that they've adopted, and more than 250, I think, municipalities who have identical language. And I can assure you that if we embrace equality and protect everybody equally under the law, we will be a better community. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank the senator. Do any other senators wish to be heard regarding Senate Bill 868? Seeing none, the question is, shall Senate Bill 868 pass? All in favor of the motion will record their vote aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their vote? Clerk, close the roll.
Ayes 30, noes 9.
Ayes 30, noes 9. Senate Bill 868 passes.
Senate Bill 64, a bill relating to paramilitary activities penalty.
Senator from Portsmouth, Senator Lucas.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I move that Senate Bill 64 pass.
Senator has the floor to speak to that bill.
Yes, sir.
There's the floor.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, what this bill does, it helps to prevent future violence like that which we saw in Charlottesville, in addition to sending a message that any group that elects to assemble in order to intimidate others will not be allowed. Mr. President, again, I renew my motion that the bill pass.
I thank the senator. For what purpose is Senator from Henrico? Senator Donovan, rise.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise to speak to the bill.
Thank the senator. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have two sons that are Eagle Scouts, and my husband is as well. And we've been very involved in supporting the scouting program in Virginia for decades. And I will say that the Boy Scouts of Virginia have a lot of concerns about this bill and the consequences it will have for the opportunity for scouting in Virginia. The Boy Scouts of America have taught firearm safety to youths 11 to 17 for over 100 years in the Commonwealth. And this has been a very vibrant part of the way they've recruited men and now young women to participate in scouting programs and be encouraged to be in the outdoors and develop skills and really become assets in society. And Mr. President, as you well may know, Eagle Scouts are a great attribute to leadership in Virginia and in the United States. And this bill could inadvertently force them to not be able to participate in firearm training anymore. There's a lot of gray areas for interpretation, and organizations like the Scouts who teach firearm safety would be put at risk in the future for the behavior of someone who attended the course that they taught, behavior over which they would have no control. Mr. President, I will urge the members of this body to vote against this bill.
Thank the senator. For what purpose is the senior senator from Chesterfield, Senator Chase, rise?
Thank you, Mr. President. May I ask a question of the patron, the senior citizen from Senior Citizen?
I am a senior citizen.
I apologize.
Senator,
That's okay. I am a senior
Senator from
citizen.
Portsmouth, Senator Lucas. Will Senator yield for a question?
Yes, I yield, Mr. President.
I thank the senator.
I was having flashbacks to yesterday.
Senator has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you. My question is this. Would Senate Bill 64 make individuals assembling armed on lobby day illegal?
Senator has the floor.
Mr. President, I will respond to the senator that that bill would not make lobby day illegal. What the bill intends to do is prevent future violence like that which we saw in Charlottesville. And unless these groups are assembled expressly for the purpose of intimidating others, the bill does not apply to them. This bill specifically applies to people who assemble with the intent of intimidating people.
Mr. President.
And Senator, for what purpose Senator from Petersburg, the senator from Fairfax, Senator Peterson, rise?
If I might, if I could basically respond to Senator
Loud, Senator Peterson,
Chesterfield's question.
Go ahead. Thank you. I yield.
Thank you. Thank you for yielding. Senator has the floor.
I might speak on behalf of the committee. We made a very substantive amendment which nobody has addressed yet. And if you look at the language, you notice it cross-references Section 18.2-282. That is a criminal code statute which references brandishing. Right. Brandishing is when you not only have a weapon on you, but you actually point it at somebody with the intent of causing fear or intimidation. So it's not just assembling with weapons or drilling or Boy Scouts. It's when you actually take a weapon and brandish it at somebody, which is already a felony in Virginia, with the intent in causing fear for that. We made that change specifically in the courts committee, or whatever we call it now.
Judiciary.
Judiciary. In order to accomplish the purpose that Senator Lucas asked us to.
President.
Senator, is there further questions, Senator?
Yes, thank you.
Yes.
I have one further question from the senator from Fairfax City.
Senator from
if you
Fairfax
don't
City,
mind.
will you yield for another question?
Thank you.
If Senator Lucas doesn't mind, sure.
Senator from Portsmouth, you okay?
Don't mind at all.
All right, thank the senator. Senator yields. You have the floor.
Thank you. Just for clarification, so on Lobby Day, we had a number of citizens from around Virginia and across the country, actually,
Right.
who came here with long guns and all different types of guns, peacefully assembling. And if there is someone here that, is it potential for someone that is here to feel threatened or uncomfortable or whatever, is there any potential for them saying that that's an activity that would not be permitted?
Senator, has the floor.
The short answer to that is the felony of brandishing already takes into that account. And I'm looking at the language right now, and it says, it shall be unlawful for any person to point, hold, or brandish any firearm, basically with the intent of reasonably inducing fear in the mind of another. I'm sort of breezing down the language. That's been on our books for a long time. So if people are here peaceably assembled, then that's a First Amendment right, and they're exercising their First Amendment right. If myself or you or anybody else is walking to the Capitol and they take a firearm and point it at us and say, if you vote for a gun control bill, that's going to be your last day in this building, that is potentially a brandishing. So I'm not asking everyone to support this bill, but the bottom line is it does not do what some of the folks think it does.
Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator.
I want to thank
Senator Lucas.
Yes, Mr. President. I just want to thank the senator for helping me to clarify that information, because, as I indicated, this bill intends only to prevent future violence, and it's only reference to people who assemble with the intent of intimidating people. And as Senator Peterson has indicated, that's if you were to take your gun and point it at me and say, I'm going to shoot you, well, then yes, that's what this bill is intended to address. So with that, Mr. President, I renew my motion that the bill pass.
I thank the senator. I think Senator from King George. For what purpose does Senator Stewart rise?
Well, Mr. President.
Senator, has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. And Mr. President, we did have a pretty robust debate about this in the Courts of Justice Committee, and I appreciate and respect and understand what the patron wants to do, and the bill does do that. It's sort of the title is misleading. It says paramilitary activities, but you don't have to be involved in a paramilitary activity to be convicted under the statute. But certainly if there were a group of individuals in uniforms with weapons, displaying them and trying to intimidate people, you could prosecute them under this statute. The problem is the statute draws in a whole lot of people besides that group. And so, technically speaking, if I and a friend of mine were standing in a public area in hunting gear and I'm holding a shotgun like this, and my friend is too, and somebody who's very uncomfortable with guns walks by and I say something that they determine was intimidating, I could be charged under this. And here's the problem with these kinds of laws. We intend to stop a group of people who clearly want to try to intimidate and harass other people. And I agree with that. But when you craft a law like this, you've got to be careful not to bring others in it, because a fact finder, either a judge or a jury, is going to make a determination after the fact, not while it's happening. They can't know what that person means or thinks at the time, but a fact finder after the incident will infer what happened, and there's typically a standard of reasonableness. And so my concern with this bill is it just goes too far. It's much like the brandishing statute, which was incorporated in it, and under that, if I'm holding a gun, and I can be holding it not in a threatening manner, hold it right across my chest, and I'm talking to someone while I'm holding that weapon across my chest, not pointing it, not threatening them. But if they're afraid of guns, they are afraid of what I'm doing. And I'm intimidating them without even intentionally intimidating them. And if you look across the Commonwealth, there are countless people who have been convicted of brandishing a firearm simply on those grounds. And so all I ask is, if you want to stop these groups, and neo-Nazis or whatever they are that are intimidating people, I agree with that. But let's confine it to that, and let's not bring other citizens into these, because you're setting them up to be convicted for not doing anything wrong.
Thank the senator. For what purpose, Senator from Henrico? Senator Donovan, rise.
Just to clarify,
There's the floor.
it is the juxtaposition of number 1 in this bill on line 12 with number 3 on line 20, in that many young men and women get their firearm training from the Scouts. Without the Scouts necessarily, they have no control over the future behavior, but that's where their training was obtained. And I will tell you, obviously the Boy Scouts are very cautious. They do youth training. They take a lot of precautions, and they're adverse to being put in any jeopardy. But in this situation, they have a great deal of concern that the teaching that they do in firearm safety will subsequently be affiliated with bad judgment of somebody they trained at a later time. And I think that's their concern about an unintended consequence of this bill, but they are deeply concerned. And I wanted to share that. Based on that, I feel like it's not ready for prime time. I'm sorry this didn't come up in committee, but it was shared with me. And so that is the issue that I'm addressing that I'm very concerned about. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank the senator. For what purpose, Senator from Russell? Senator Chafin, rise.
Mr. President, I rise to talk about the bill.
Senator has the floor.
And I heard the testimony in committee, and I'm concerned, like some of my colleagues, about the unintended consequences of the bill. I think the gentlelady from Portsmouth has the most honorable of intentions with regard to her bill. I think she seeks to address those things that occurred in Charlottesville, which were horrendous. And we all know that. We all believe that. We'd all want to avoid that. But, Mr. President, we're coming off on the heels of the largest assembly of individuals in support of the First Amendment in this city, in the capital city, since the Civil Rights Movement. We've not seen that many people assemble here in Richmond in support of their First Amendment rights and in support of their Second Amendment rights. So, Mr. President, we've seen bills this session that have passed and may become law, that we've seen bills that are prohibition of guns, that call for the prohibition of guns in certain circumstances. We've seen bills that in certain circumstances call for the confiscation of guns in certain circumstances. We've seen, now we're seeing what I fear, the unintended consequences, is the suppression of guns, the suppression of the carrying and the outward display of an individual's constitutionally protected rights under the Second Amendment to carry and possess a firearm. And I know everything in me from my years as an attorney, my time as working as a prosecutor. I know in my heart there will be unintended consequences to this. I know that we have different opinions about firearms in this Commonwealth. When we hear about firearms from different witnesses, we have people who are very comfortable with them. They're as comfortable with firearms as they are with the handkerchief that a lot of gentlemen carry in their pocket. And then we have people who look at a firearm as though it's a snake. They're afraid of it. They don't like the firearm, and they fear the firearm, and naturally they are offended and fear those who who display the firearm. So I am very concerned, Mr. President, that those individuals will be so offended, genuinely offended, that they will fear and they will take charge. And once again, the potential is there for good, law-abiding people who have absolutely no evil in their heart, no bad intent, no intention to do anything, carrying their gun completely unloaded, to be charged. And they will be forced to undergo the expense, the humiliation of a public charge, of having to hire an attorney, of having to appear before a court of law, perhaps before a jury of their peers to defend themselves. That's what I fear about this bill, Mr. President, and I agree with the gentlelady from Henrico. I don't think the bill is quite ready for prime time. Thank you.
Thank the senator. Do any other senators wish to be heard regarding Senate Bill 64? For what purpose does Senator from Bath, Senator Deeds, rise?
Mr. President, just briefly to speak to the bill.
Senator has the floor.
I think the gentleman's fears are entirely misplaced. You have to read this bill and have to read it with the brandishing of a firearm statute, which is a Class 1 misdemeanor, Class 6 felony in certain situations, and only if a reasonable man is intimidated or put in fear by the brandishing of a firearm does the statute take effect. There's no violation unless there's a reasonable expectation or intimidation from the activity that occurs. I've prosecuted and defended these cases. If there's not a reasonable expectation or if there's not a reasonable idea that the person is going to be intimidated by the conduct, there's no criminal offense.
What purpose does Senator from Rockingham, Senator Obenshain, rise?
Mr. President, speak to the bill. I appreciate the Senator from Bath's comments. We've heard on the floor during the course of this session how reasonable people from different parts of the state react to somebody holding a firearm. You know, we had a lot of people from across Virginia who came from different backgrounds here in Richmond back on January 20. And if you canvass people in this room, I would suspect that there was a wide variety of reactions as to whether they were in fear for their safety. And I've heard some of my colleagues on both sides in the House and the Senate say that they were afraid. Notwithstanding the fact that nothing happened. We heard comments about somebody actually displaying a firearm in public in Alexandria at a farmer's market, and how people there were afraid. I would suspect that guy, if there was somebody else with them, they'd have been charged under this statute. And I don't know whether they'd have been convicted, but my guess is that they might be convicted in Alexandria, but might not be convicted in Bath County. So, what we're doing is we're adopting a standard that creates a crime depending upon who's perceiving it. And it may be a crime in one part of the state, but not in another part of the state. So be careful where you come visit. And when I heard the questions and responses about Lobby Day, I suspect, especially given some of the reactions to Lobby Day this year, that there are going to be people who are going to be charged for simply coming to Richmond who want to defend their Second Amendment rights. I think this statute is one that is going to create serious disparities from one part of the state and discrepancies from one part of the state to another. And I would certainly hope that we would take a step back and not pass this.
Do any senators other than the patron wish to be heard regarding Senate Bill 64? Seeing none, call the senator from Portsmouth, Senator Lucas.
Thank you, Mr. President. And before I move to pass the bill again, I just want to make one statement, and that is that my daddy had 14 brothers and one sister. They all had guns. I grew up around guns, all kinds of guns. Each one of their children loved guns, was never afraid of guns. I was never afraid for one moment on Rally Day. The only thing that bothers me is when people brandish their firearms. And that's what this bill is intended to get to. And so with that, Mr. President, I would like to renew my motion that the bill pass.
Thank the senator. The question is, shall Senate Bill 64 pass? All in favor of the motion will record their vote aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their vote? Clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 21, noes 19.
Ayes 21, noes 19. Senate Bill 64 passes.
Senate Bill 71, a bill relating to possession of firearms, other weapons on school property.
Senator from Portsmouth, Senator Lucas.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 71 is a bill to relating to possession of firearms and other weapons on school property. And so I know that there are going to be a lot of remarks about that, but I'll still go on and move passage of Senate Bill 71.
Thank
Mr.
you,
President, and
Mr. Floor.
Yes, sir, Mr. President. The bill expressly clarifies that that no person who possesses a firearm on school or other property can do so. No, that's not what I want. What I want to say, Mr. President, that this makes it clear that only trained, qualified law enforcement personnel may have guns for security purposes at those locations.
Thank the senator. Do any other senators wish to be heard regarding Senate Bill 71? For what purpose is the senior senator from Chesterfield, Senator Chase, rise?
Thank you, Mr. President. Respectfully, I stand to speak in opposition to this bill.
Senator, has the floor.
And I'll tell you why. As a concealed carry holder myself, a lot of times I'll visit schools, preschools, all throughout my district. And what this bill requires me to do, and others in my district, is to find a place to put their firearm where we visit these gun-free zones. Where do we put our gun? Do we put it in our car for someone to steal? Do we keep our gun at home, locked up, where we can't use it and risk something happening? While you may think that's okay, there are those of us that do have threats and do have concerns where we don't feel safe without being able to protect ourselves. And what this bill does is it disarms law-abiding citizens and prohibits them from being able to protect themselves. And for that, Mr. President, I'm afraid I'm going to have to oppose this bill as well. Thank you.
Thank the senator. For what purpose is the senior senator from Chesapeake, Senator Cosgrove, rise?
Would the senator from Portsmouth answer a question?
Will Senator yield for a question?
Mr. President, I yield, and if I can't answer the question, I will rely on one of my attorneys from this side of the aisle.
I thank the senator. You have the floor.
I'd ask the senator, looking at the text of the bill, this isn't just schools. It's also child daycare centers and preschools. So it's not just public schools. It's property of any child daycare center.
Senator, has the floor.
Yes, sir, Mr. President. I will respond to the senator, and I guess it's the senator from Chesapeake. Since the senator from Chesapeake, that is the answer is yes, as we discussed before.
Thank you.
Thank the senator. For what purpose is the senator from Franklin County, Senator Stanley, rise?
Thank you, Mr. President. Speak to the bill.
Senator, has the floor.
Mr. President, here we go once again, limiting law-abiding firearms owners from possessing their firearms on certain grounds. We've taken this part of the code, 182308.1, and we've already started the ban of these firearms in public buildings, including schools. Now we're expanding them, quite frankly, to child daycare centers and religious preschools. The property of a child daycare center or a religious preschool. So these determinations that the government is now making for its citizenry limits not only their rights under the Second Amendment, but also calls into question whether these areas then can be or determined to be soft targets or safe from someone with a firearm who wishes to do a child or their teacher harm. And it's ironic to note that in the same way we want to ban these firearms in these preschools, Mr. President, I had a bill, Senate Bill 1091, which found its way to be killed this morning in the Ed and Health Committee, which was merely going to allow those school divisions, like mine in my area in Southwest Virginia, who do not have enough resources to have a school resource officer on premises, our sheriff's departments that have a 19% yearly attrition rate where we're losing deputies because the pay is so low and we haven't been able to pay them, that some of these counties and areas could not afford to put a resource officer either by the manpower or the cost into our schools to keep our children safe. Senate Bill 1091 simply said if that area, that school division, had the ability to hire as a volunteer a retired police officer to be employed as a school resource officer, not giving them police powers, not arresting children, but just to protect them. Because I guess if we're in this rush to limit the Second Amendment rights, we must always understand the one thing that our Secretary of Public Safety said in a meeting, is that we in the Commonwealth owe an obligation and a duty to keep the public safe when it comes onto our properties that are controlled by our state and local governments. Well, if you're not going to let the person protect him or herself, then we owe an obligation to protect them. That is to say, on the child daycare center or religious preschool or high school or middle school or elementary school, that if we are not going to allow law-abiding citizens to possess firearms, we must, one, admit to ourselves that what we are doing is softening the target for the person that wishes to do our children harm. Our most important natural resource, as I've said before, our children deserve that protection. Our teachers deserve that protection. And in those areas where those areas cannot afford a school resource officer, then they should have the ability to employ credentialed, retired police officers to protect those children. But all we're doing here with this bill, and all we've been doing, is removing safety from the public. That obligation which we have, which is to keep the public safe. And if we won't let them determine for themselves to keep themselves safe, then it is up to us. We should have school resource officers in every school, but we cannot, because those school divisions or those sheriff's departments cannot afford to do so. So if it doesn't happen, then we as a state should put somebody in there who can meet the danger and stop the harm. Instead, what we're doing here with this bill, Senate Bill 71, and with all due respect to the patron who I care for very deeply and love. Thank you. I love you. But I don't love this bill. We have to keep them safe. And the only way in today's society, a dangerous society indeed that it has become, unfortunately that it has become, is to make sure that we meet that threat on the same level that the threat may meet those children. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank the Senator. For what purpose does the senior senator from Virginia Beach, Senator D. Steph, rise?
Mr. President, will the gentlelady from Portsmouth rise for a quick question?
Will the Senator yield?
I yield, Mr. President.
Senator yields. You have the floor.
Mr. President, for the young lady from Portsmouth, my question is this. I'm going back through the bill again. I don't see anywhere where it says the building has to be occupied by children. And in this, my concern with this is the unintended consequence, Mr. President. And if the building does not have to be occupied by children at the time, we have a lot of our buildings that are used for daycare, buildings that are used for our schools that are also used for Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, and other activities outside of the schools. So if we're not having a child in the school, and I just want to make sure I'm not missing something, do the children have to be present at the school?
Senator has the floor.
Mr. President, I would say to the senator from Virginia Beach that the bill was intended for students while they were in the classroom. And it specifically states that it's during the hours that children are in the classroom. It says firearms on school property. Well, it doesn't say that exactly, but it's intended for the hours that the students would be in the classroom, yes.
Further question?
Mr. President, and I understand where she's trying to get with this, Mr. President, and I just reading the bill, I don't see where that actually works with the bill. What I see here with the bill is it's any time that anyone's in a building. I understand what the gentle lady tried to get accomplished or is trying to accomplish here. But this bill, Mr. President, does not do that. This bill says anytime that if you're in there with a firearm, so whether it's the Boy Scouts, whether it's a police auxiliary, whether it's the police using that building for a meeting afterwards, whether it's somebody who's just a hunting club and they're using it, this right there would make them guilty of it because children, this does not say children have to be present. So, Mr. President, my concern with this bill is the unintended consequences of this bill. Thank you very much.
Thank the Senator. So I was going to go. Do you want to continue?
Mr. President, I thought that it sounded to me like it was more of a statement to me rather than a question.
I think that's right.
Okay.
Unless the Senator wishes to respond, I don't want to stop you from doing that. Okay. We have a couple more who want to speak, so we'll come back to you. For what purpose is Senator from Russell, Senator Chafin rise?
Mr. President, I'm not seeking to change my image in this chamber to being someone who rises to speak to lots of bills. But it's just that these two bills in a row by the gentlelady from Portsmouth have garnered my attention.
Senator has the floor.
And you know, I attend a church that I am very familiar with how the security works in that church. There is security, and I'm familiar with how it works. And in fact, this wouldn't affect it because there is one of the security officers is a major in the sheriff's office, next in command to the sheriff and of my county, and so this might disarm his entire group of people that he has that work with him because that church has sometimes these churches, you know, they have daycares in them or they have child care, child day centers. They have religious components, teaching components to them, religious school components to them. And like a lot of the members of this chamber, we get around to different churches. You know, we see different churches. We see how people worship in different ways around our districts. Looking around, and
Mr. President, I would ask gentlemen if you mind if I yield, if he would yield, if I make a request that this go by for the day.
I will yield.
The Senator yields. Senator Fairfax.
Just having consulted with the gentlelady from Portsmouth, that this go by for the day.
Without objection, Senate Bill 71 will go by for the day.
Senate Bill 438, a bill relating to judicial performance evaluation, risk assessment tool, use of alternative sanctions.
Senator from Eastern Fairfax, Senator Servell.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the bill pass. And speaking to the bill.
Senator has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. So, ladies and gentlemen, what this bill has to do with is something called the alternative risk assessment that's done when people are sentenced to certain felonies in Virginia courts. It's called a nonviolent risk assessment. The origins of this go back to the abolishment of parole. And back when parole was abolished, the General Assembly directed the Sentencing Commission to come up with an evidence-based statistical way to separate out people who would be better, who might be better rehabilitated if they didn't go to jail. They were given a non-incarceration type sentencing alternative. This program has been revised a couple times through the years, but there's a study that came out this fall by a professor at the University of George Mason and the University of Texas that showed that the judges are not following this evidence-based approach to divert people from jail. Some judges aren't following it all, and some are not following it consistently, and the use of it is going down over time. It's not working. And the reason we need it to work is because it will cost taxpayers a lot less, and we'll get a lot better outcomes in criminal justice if this evidence-based approach is actually followed. So what the bill does is it basically says that in any situation where probation prepares the sentencing guideline form for somebody who's been convicted of a felony, and it recommends an alternative sanction, that the probation department is also to calculate the cost of the incarceration sentence and the cost of the non-incarceration sentence and put that in front of the judge. If the judge then picks the incarceration sentence, the Sentencing Commission is to aggregate that data so that we can come back and look at how much money we are spending because our judges are ordering incarceration type sentences instead of non-incarceration sentences, so we can figure out how to fix this problem. So that's what the bill does. I would hope that the bill would pass. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank the senator. Do any other senators wish to be heard regarding Senate Bill 438? Senator from Hanover, Senator McDougal.
Mr. President, would the gentleman yield for question?
Will the senator yield?
I'll yield.
Senator yield. You have the floor.
Mr. President, I understand the gentleman's position of trying to get the cost of a alternative sentence versus a sentence of incarceration, but would the gentleman not yield that the cost of any physical damage or hospital bills or psychological evaluations to the victim would also be important information that should be included on the sentencing guidelines?
Senator has the floor.
Mr. President, what I would say to the gentleman that in my experience, when a probation officer prepares a pre-sentence report, they prepare lots of information, but the victim also has a chance to present a victim impact statement, and if they have a fiscal, if there's a money side of it, that'll be included in the rest in the victim impact, and probably in the sentencing guideline as well as to what financial or monetary impact there was on the victim. I agree with the gentleman though that there's no. I'm not even sure how anybody could even calculate the cost to the system of having to process a case, whether that's the cost for the police officer, the clerk sitting next to the judge, the lawyers. I mean, that's kind of a cost that's impossible to calculate, whereas somebody's time sitting in a jail cell is pretty easy to calculate.
Mr. President, would the gentleman yield for a further question?
Gentleman yield.
I yield.
Mr. President, would the gentleman agree with me that under this provision, there's no requirement that a pre-sentence report be prepared? This is only applying to the sentencing guidelines which are prepared.
Senator has the floor.
So, Mr. President, just to expand, so that information the gentleman just described could be in a pre-sentence report, but may not be presented to the court if only a sentencing guideline is presented.
Senator has the floor.
I agree with the gentleman, but it's been my experience at least that pre-sentence reports investigations are prepared in the vast majority of felonies, except for some of the very, what I would call minor felonies, things like, shopliftings and simple felony drug possessions.
Further question?
Just speak to the bill, Mr.
Senator has the floor.
Mr. President, I understand what the gentleman is trying to do, and that is get a good handle of the cost of different sentences, and I think that that is a laudable goal. But, Mr. President, what this bill does is put part of the story in front of the judge and is encouraging a court to make a decision based on cost. Mr. President, if an individual is coming in front of a judge, there's a sentencing guideline which we have determined is discretionary. The judge doesn't have to follow it. We do not have mandatory guidelines in the Commonwealth. The judge should have the opportunity to receive information. If we are going down the road of putting cost of the judge's decision, then all the costs should be placed before the judge. The cost to the victim, the time they've had to be away from work, the time they've had to come to court, the loss to their family or property, their medical expenses, those costs should be on that same guideline so we can calculate it when we go back. Mr. President, this does also not include the cost of law enforcement investigating the case, trying to find where that defendant is. That is now, we're at this point, the court has found them guilty. Mr. President, it also does not include the cost of any other things that could have applied, like emergency services that had to be called, any other cost. Mr. President, what this does is put one side of the ledger in front of the judge, one side. And Mr. President, if we want to collect this information, collect the information, but don't put it as the item the court is going to receive before they make a decision. Unless you're going to put all the information, make sure the judge has that all in the same place. Mr. President, many in this body have practiced law. Many who've not practiced law have gone to court. We all know that our justice system is not perfect, but by gosh, it's the best one in the world. You have the opportunity to confront and cross-examine your witnesses. You have the opportunity to have a set of jurors, citizens, come forward and hear your case if you don't want the court. Again, it is not perfect, but make sure that when we're doing this, that both sides of the ledger are being heard and that the victim also has the voice if there's any, so their cost and their expenses are also being heard as you're weighing the other cost. Mr. President, I think it's a bad decision for judges to be making determinations on sentencing about cost. They should be making it on the defendant's record, the type of crime, the impact on the victim. Those are legitimate things. Whether the defendant has done anything since the time that they've been arrested to show remorse or to make recompense in the community. Those are legitimate things the court should hear, not just only one side of the ledger about the cost. Mr. President, with that, I'd ask this body to reject this measure.
Thank the Senator. For what purpose does the junior senator from Richmond City, Senator Morrissey, rise?
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, would the gentleman from Eastern Fairfax County yield for a question?
Will Senator yield?
I'll yield.
Senator Yield, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I'd ask the gentleman, does Senate Bill 438 help circuit courts, particularly those circuit courts in rural jurisdictions, identify resources that could be utilized in alternative sanctions?
Senator, the floor.
Mr. President, I appreciate the question. I would say to the senator from the junior senator from Richmond that some of the testimony that we heard during committee was that many of the rural jurisdictions of the state, they don't have sentencing alternatives available to utilize. And so part of the reason that judges might not be utilizing the alternative sanction, the non-incarceration sanction, is because the localities aren't providing it. And one of my hopes was that if we could isolate that as being a big part of the problem, we might be able to take some of this money we're spending incarcerating people and putting into programs in some of these rural localities so they might have these options available that we do in other parts of the state.
Further question?
One final question, Mr. President.
Senator Yields?
I'll yield.
Senator Yields, you have the floor.
Was any part of your measure of 438 designed to put information in judicial evaluations that would punish a circuit court judge for not pursuing an alternative sanction?
Senator, the floor.
Mr. President, I'd say the gentleman is no. There was originally a part of this bill that had to do with judicial evaluations. That's taken out. It's no longer in the bill. This has nothing to do with punishing judges for not using the sanction. It's just a measure to gather information so that we can make better decisions as a legislature as to why our program isn't being utilized.
Thank you, Mr. President. I thank the senator.
Thank the senator. Do any other senators wish to be heard regarding Senate Bill 438?
I do.
Senator from Eastern Fairfax, Senator Servo.
Thank you, Mr. President. Really briefly, just to respond to what the senator from Hanover had to say. We have a program that we've had on the books now since 1997. It was an evidence-based program to try to divert people from jail into a cheaper, better alternative to trying to get people rehabilitated. The data now shows that at least as of 2016, it's dropped from being used 70% of the time to 40% of the time. Judges are not following the program we set up for them, and nobody is asking why that is. All this bill does is gather information to find out where this is happening and how much it's costing us so that we can have this information to make better decisions. That's all the bill does. I think it's a good idea and something we need to get to the bottom of, especially as we start looking at criminal justice reform measures and the bill needs to pass.
Question is, shall Senate Bill 438 pass? All in favor of the motion will record their vote aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their vote? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 21, noes 19.
Ayes 21, noes 19. Senate Bill 438 passes.
Senate Bill 676, a bill relating to zoning alcoholic beverage control licenses.
Senator from Williamsburg, Senator Mason.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I move that Senate Bill 676 pass. And speaking of the motion,
Senator has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, this bill simply adds Hampton to Norfolk and Richmond, allowing when a special use permit transfers that they can take a look at it and make sure that it applies to current standards like security staffing, maximum occupancy, noise ordinances. Some of these are very old, and this allows the city to work with a new owner in advance of any problems to make sure that they're avoided. So with that, Mr. President, I move that Senate Bill 676 pass.
Thank the Senator. The question is, shall Senate Bill 676 pass? All in favor of the motion will record their vote aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their vote? Clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 40, no 0.
Ayes 40, no 0. Senate Bill 676 passes.
Senate Bill 684, a bill relating to mental health as disqualifier for firearm possession.
Senator from Williamsburg, Senator Mason.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I move that Senate Bill 684 pass. And speaking of the motion,
Senator has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, in this situation, we have someone that has been involuntarily committed, at which time they have to forfeit their gun rights. What we're seeing is that during that period of time, some of these patients are being restored. And so, but at the time that they were detained, they appealed, which gives them an automatic appeal to the circuit court. Well, that could take 3-4 weeks. If that period of time they are restored to health, or there's another scenario where they just keep delaying the case, and then asking for a jury trial, so stringing it out until the patient is restored. They then appear before the circuit judge, and the only thing that judge can rule on is today, are you healthy? Today, is your mental health good? Not what was the situation back when they were involuntarily detained. So when the judge makes that ruling, they automatically get their gun rights back. What the Commonwealth Attorney wants is either at that moment or at another point, just like happens today, there is an individual hearing to determine if their rights should be restored. That's what this bill chooses to do. My local Commonwealth attorneys asked me to bring it. And with that, Mr. President, I ask that Senate Bill 684 pass.
Thank the Senator. For what purpose, Senator from King George, Senator Stewart, rise?
Speak to the bill, Mr. President.
Senator has the floor.
Mr. President, I don't want my abstention to indicate any opposition to the bill. I just want to do a little further research, and I support the bill now.
Thank the Senator. For what purpose is the senior senator from Chesterfield, Senator Chase, rise?
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise to speak to the bill.
Senator has the floor.
Mr. President, while I am not an attorney, I did consult one on this, and there was a Supreme Court case, Poe versus Henrico Area Mental Health. It was a 2013 Virginia Supreme Court case, and the ruling was as follows. The purpose of this two-tier trial system is to allow a party aggrieved by a final judgment of the General District Court to have the case tried again by the Circuit Court as if the case originally had been instituted there. Such an appeal is in effect a statutory grant of a new trial in which the perfected appeal annuls the judgment of the district court as completely as if there had been no previous trial. If the judgment of the General District Court is reversed, the Circuit Court is required to enter an order or judgment, as ought to have been made or given by the judge of the court from which the appeal was taken. The bill is problematic for several reasons. First, it punishes a person who has won their appeal, restricting them from lawfully owning their firearm when acquitted. This is the equivalent, Mr. President, of a situation where a person who has been convicted of a DUI in a lower court and wins his appeal in higher court but is still stripped of their license after it was determined they were wrongly convicted. For that, Mr. President, I will be opposing this bill. Thank you.
Thank the Senator. For what purpose does Senator from Rockingham, Senator Obenshain, rise?
Mr. President, I rise to speak in connection with the bill.
Senator has the floor.
Mr. President, look, nobody stood up in opposition to this bill. VCDL didn't stand up in opposition to this bill. The NRA didn't stand up in opposition to this bill. This bill is a common sense bill that is intended to keep the guns out of the hands of the mentally ill. And after the Virginia Tech shooting, we went to great lengths to make sure that we were doing the right thing with our gun laws, making sure that people who were criminals the dangerous mentally ill were not equipped to commit crimes. What this bill does is it closes the decision that the senator from Chesterfield mentioned created an unintentional gap in that law. And what Senator Mason did not mention is that when that person who was committed goes back to court, on the day that circuit court may invalidate the initial commitment because the mental condition has been restored, the person who lost their gun rights 7 days before can ask that circuit court judge that very day, restore my gun rights. That very day. This is a common sense measure that achieves the limited goal of making sure that we protect our communities without infringing upon the constitutionally protected Second Amendment rights of law-abiding citizens in the Commonwealth. It's very seldom, and I see eyebrows up, that I would stand up and support a bill that says gun and your rights are not immediately restored. But this is one that falls into that very narrow category where that restoration of those rights can take place immediately with no delay whatsoever, as long as that person poses no threat to themselves or to others. Support this bill.
Thank you, Senator. Question is, shall Senate Bill 684 pass? All in favor of the motion will record their vote aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their vote? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 39, noes 1.
Ayes 39, noes 1. Senate Bill 684 passes.
Senate Bill 805, a bill relating to robbery penalty.
Senator from Prince William County, Senator McPike.
Mr. President, can this go by temporarily?
Without objection, Senate Bill 805 will go by temporarily.
Senate Bill 956, a bill relating to the Fort Monroe Authority, civil actions in General District Court.
Thank you. I move that.
Senator from Hampton, Senator Locke.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that Senate Bill 956 pass. And speaking to that.
Senator, has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Fort Monroe Authority is responsible for approximately 300 acres of land, over which 1.5 million square feet of that is buildings. The economic model for the authority includes both the management and leasing of these facilities to private individuals. Although there are very few problems with tenants, when a problem occurs, the authority reserves the right to go to court. But under the code, which allows business entities to prepare, execute, file, and serve in General District Court a number of landlord-tenant related filings, sometimes that can be problematic. Since the authority is not one of the business types under the code, in a recent filing, the court threw out a warrant in debt filing. So what the authority is asking for is to come under the existing statute to allow the Fort Monroe Authority to proceed in property management disputes. So I move that Senate Bill 956 pass.
I thank the senator. Do any other senators wish to be heard regarding Senate Bill 956? Seeing none, the question is, shall Senate Bill 956 pass? All in favor of the motion will record their vote aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their vote? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 23, noes 17.
Ayes 23, noes 17. Senate Bill 956 passes.
Senate Bill 961, a bill relating to the issuance of bonds.
The junior senator from Richmond City, Senator Morrissey.
Mr. President, I move for passage of Senate Bill 961 and request permission to speak to the measure.
Senator has the floor.
Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen of this body, this is a pretty simple bill. It authorizes a charter change in the...
Mr. President. Mr. President, will the senator yield for one quick question?
Senator from Franklin County, Senator Stanley, will Senator yield?
I yield.
Senator yields.
Mr. President, I asked the gentleman, of all the times that I've looked up on this board and I see Surraville and I see Marsden and I see Surraville putting these bills in, am I correct that this is the first Morrissey bill presented for this body to consider?
Actually, the first bill...
There's the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. The first bill would have been the one 2 bills ago, Senate Bill 805.
Further question?
Senator, yield for just one more question.
Will Senator yield?
I yield.
Senator yields. You have the floor.
Mr. President, I asked the gentleman, did he just sneak another one by me?
Senator has the floor.
I would tell the gentleman 2 things. Number one, the attorney-client relationship that exists between us still exists in these hallowed halls. And number 2, we're going to be returning to SB 805 in just a moment.
Mr. President, I suddenly have no further questions. You know what I'm saying?
Thank the senator. For what purpose, Senator from Eastern Fairfax? Senator Surraville rise.
As a senator from junior senator from Richmond, yield for a question.
Will Senator yield?
With a bit of trepidation, I yield.
Senator yields. You have the floor.
You know, I noticed. I think both now and also in your prior service, you represented the city of Hopewell, and I was just curious if you knew who founded the city of Hopewell in 1613.
Oh.
Senator has the floor.
You know, as I would tell the senator, as a former history teacher, I should know that, but I don't. I could tell him the population in Hopewell in 1945, but I can't tell the senator who founded the city of Hopewell.
Further question?
Will Senator yield for another question?
Will Senator yield? Will Senator yield?
Mr. President, I've been reminded by several people around me that perhaps Senator Saslaw founded the city of Hopewell. But I do yield for another question.
Senator yields. You have the floor.
Well, you know, the answer is actually the City Point was founded in 1613 by Sir Thomas Dale, which I'm really disappointed you don't know your local history for your own district. But I would also note that the city of Hopewell also has a long Quaker tradition. It was actually founded by Quakers, you know, and I was just poking around on Google, and I noticed your bill is about bonds. And, you know, the Quakers didn't really like debt. You know, I found this one Quaker writing from the early 1600s say, be sure to draw your affairs as narrow a compass as you can and in method and proportion, time, and other requisites proper for them. You know, does this bill, this borrowing debt bill, does this violate the founding principles of the city of Hopewell?
Senator has the floor.
I would tell the senator it doesn't, first of all. And second, while the Quakers didn't like debt, my Republican colleagues don't like debt. This moderate Democrat also doesn't like debt.
I have one more question.
Further question. Senator yield.
Will yield?
Will Senator yield?
Senator yields.
Senator yields. You have the floor.
Well, you know, I've also been watching a lot of Sherlock Holmes, and those movies, impart to us the value of deductive reasoning. And I've been trying to figure out what you're up to here. And when I Googled Wikipedia's what's famous in Google for Wikipedia, the first thing that pops up is Bojangles' famous chicken and biscuits. And I note that they're going to have to pay for these bonds somehow. And I don't know if they have, I assume they have a meals tax, but there's some of the comments on here, you know, the food is great, employees are very personal, but slow service. I got 2 big pulled pork sandwiches for $5. Can't beat that. Is your purpose here to destroy Bojangles? You know, put a big meals tax on them, destroy Bojangles, to pay for your debt here?
Senator has the floor.
I would tell the senator that my wife often asks the same thing. What are you up to, Joe? I would tell the senator I do not want to destroy Bojangles, and I would encourage the senator to visit the great city of Hopewell. They actually have the best barbecue in the East Coast.
Well, gentlemen, yield for one other question?
Well, Senator yield.
I yield, Mr. President.
Senator yield. You have the floor.
They have any vegetarian barbecue?
You don't have to answer. Senator has the floor.
I would tell the senator that they do make vegetarian barbecue. And second, I would also tell the senator that with all the bills that he's had this year, how does he have the time and frivolity to go on Wikipedia?
That's where he gets his bills from. For what purpose does Senator from Roanoke County, Senator Suderline, rise?
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to know if the senator will yield for a question.
Will the senator yield? Senator yields. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. When I saw that this bill was filed, I was hoping that this would be the first bill because I had some very interesting questions that I want to ask about it. The city of Hopewell in the charter, which we're addressing here today, allows the appointment of a harbor master for the port of the harbor of the city of Hopewell. And that individual has a very special distinction in the code of Virginia that almost every other Virginian has to endure. And I want to know why that man or woman should not have to get a concealed carry permit like everyone else.
Senator has the floor.
I would tell the gentleman this. Now, when I first introduced...
Your mic's off. Right. Senator has the floor.
That's a signal from Senator Favola that she doesn't want me to speak much longer. I would tell the senator that when I introduced this bill, I thought it would be short and sweet. It reminds me of, I lived in Ireland for a few years, and one of my favorite authors was Oscar Wilde. And Oscar Wilde said, there are only two tragedies in life. One is not getting what you want, and the other is getting what you want. I'm not so sure I want this bill anymore. But with that, the harbor master would be able to carry a concealed gun in Hopewell.
Further question?
And Mr. President, and without a permit and without the training, how are we supposed to accept that when just the other day we took away the online training component because the training is that important? Should we not amend this bill to make sure that the harbor master is treated like all the other Virginians?
Senator has the floor.
I would answer that question by deferring to my good friend from Chesterfield County, Senator Chase.
I thank the senator.
Thank you.
Thank the senator. Do any other senators wish to be heard regarding Senate Bill 961? For what purpose does the senior senator from Chesapeake, Senator Cosgrove, rise?
Mr. President, I actually have a serious question for the gentleman.
Senator has the floor.
I'd ask the gentleman, how many votes does this take to advance?
It's a charter change, Mr. President, so I believe that would be 27?
That's correct.
I thank the gentleman.
27 votes. Thank the senator. Do any other senators wish to be heard regarding Senate Bill 961? Seeing none, the question is, shall Senate Bill 961 pass? All in favor of the motion will record their vote aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their vote? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 36, noes 4.
Ayes 36, noes 4. Senate Bill 961 passes. And to our distinguished guests here in the gallery, just to explain what just happened, Senator Morrissey just passed his first bill as a senator, and so it's tradition that he gets hazed and heckled a little bit before that happens, and then we all applaud once the bill passes. So that's what just happened.
Returning to page 9, Senate Bill 805.
The junior senator from Richmond City, Senator Morrissey.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I move passage of Senate Bill 805 and request permission to speak on the bill.
Senator has the floor.
Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen of the body, Senate Bill 805 creates degrees of punishment within the robbery statute, and those degrees of punishment depend upon the severity of the unlawful conduct. As almost everybody knows, robbery is simply the physical taking of property from the person of another against their will with either force or intimidation. And right now, the range for that robbery, Mr. President, is 5 to life. All this bill does is sets gradations for different classes of robbery. This bill creates first-degree robbery. And that means if you rob somebody and you cause serious bodily injury, you could get up to life in prison. For second-degree robbery, if you display a firearm in a threatening manner while committing that robbery, you could get up to 20 years. Third-degree robbery would be using physical force but not resulting in serious bodily injury. You could get up to 10 years. And finally, the last one would be robbery by any other means, and that you could get 5 years. Mr. President, I would tell this body that this is certainly not something that is novel or unique. We do that in other sections of 18.2. We have gradations for murder, voluntary manslaughter, involuntary manslaughter, second degree, and first degree with concomitant punishments. For wounding, we have assault, unlawful wounding, malicious wounding, aggravated wounding, and same with arson and B&E. So that's what this bill does. It's pretty straightforward, and we're establishing gradations for robbery. Mr. President, with that, and if there are no other questions, I would respectfully move passage of 805.
Thank the senator. Do any other senators wish to be heard regarding Senate Bill 805? Seeing none, the question is, shall Senator from Hanover, Senator McDougal.
Mr. President, I am going to speak against the bill.
Senator,
Mr. President, I respect what the senator is trying to do, and I think that us trying to put in gradations in reference to the severity of the harm is not an unwise decision in general. But, Mr. President, I just want to point out what these gradations do. So we'll start from the top, and I think everybody's agreed with this. Serious bodily injury, the definition of any breaking of the skin, so anything that causes blood, paper cut, can have a broken rib, even something less serious than that would be serious bodily harm. We understand that that will be the highest penalty, and that's not unwise. Mr. President, after that, how those gradations are broken out then are where I have some real concerns. The second gradation, Mr. President, is displaying a firearm in a threatening manner. And Mr. President, we just had a conversation about what that means. We'll take 2 points on this. One, pulled up a case, and the case said, in reference to robbery, the word fear does not mean fright, it can mean apprehension. So, apprehension. But, Mr. President, the way this is written, the individual could go in to rob a person, discharge the firearm, actually shoot the firearm, and not injure the individual and have a lesser penalty than if they did something to cause the individual to have even the slightest breaking of the skin. So, Mr. President, if they struck the individual and they bled from their lip, they'd be the higher penalty, but they could discharge the firearm, not strike the individual, and it'd be a lesser penalty. Mr. President, I bring down to item number 3, which talks about robbery using physical force not resulting in serious bodily injury, which means no contact, no breaking the skin, no ribs injured, no physical injury, by displaying a deadly weapon other than a firearm. The most common other deadly weapon you might think of other than a firearm is a knife or a hammer or something like that. So, Mr. President, you could go in with a knife and try to stab somebody and miss, and we're going to have an even lesser penalty than that. And then finally, Mr. President, the other one, which is I would concede this part is a wiser direction, whether the penalty itself is the correct one, but I do think it's wiser. Robbery from a person without a weapon, without serious bodily injury, that should be a lesser penalty. If I went and attempted to take my seatmate's backpack, that is certainly a lesser action of trying to remove that from his body than if I had a weapon or a firearm or I injured him with serious bodily injury. Mr. President, when we do this, I think the intent is wise, particularly in looking at the appropriate penalty for somebody that would do an action like take a backpack from a person when they're not armed. But Mr. President, if you have a weapon and you go to steal from an individual, take something from them, whether you actually physically hurt them or attempt to physically hurt them, I don't think that makes a difference. Mr. President, I do not think the penalty should be less because the individual committing the robbery was not competent. They tried to stab him and missed. They tried to shoot him and missed. Mr. President, I do not think that these gradations are ones that we should approve. And Mr. President, I would just add that if you look specifically at number 3, you go in to rob somebody with a knife, you swipe at them and miss, the penalty now will be less than if you went and stole somebody's iPad and they never saw you.
Thank the senator. For what purpose is the senator from Eastern Fairfax? Senator Servell rise.
Speaking to the bill.
The senator has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. So, first of all, I think it's important for everybody to remember that these charges don't often happen all by themselves in a vacuum. For example, in the scenario that you just heard from the senator from Hanover, if somebody's using a firearm during a robbery, in addition to facing a robbery charge, they will also face a charge for use of a firearm in the commission of a felony, which has a 3-year mandatory minimum right now. So in addition to the robbery charge, you'll also get a 3-year mandatory minimum charge on top of that. And it's often the case that in these situations, you end up having a lot of charges piled up on you, or the people who are charged have a lot of charges piled up on them. So it's not just the robbery situation that's the issue. Our current situation is a mess. The current statute says if you're charged with robbery, it's 5 to life. Okay? So, for example, right now, if I poked Senator Peterson in an angry, rude, or vengeful manner and took $1 out of his pocket, I'm looking at 5 to life. That's crazy. And what that does, give me $1. And what that does is it pushes a lot of people to plead guilty to cases that really ought to go to trial because there's a reasonable doubt about what happened. But when you're looking at 5 to life and say it's somebody who has somewhat of a record, they're terrified because we have jury sentencing. A jury might really string them up because they can go all the way to life. And so what this does is seeks to put some brackets on these situations to ensure that we don't end up having people that are sentenced to some truly crazy sentences. And there's also judges, by the way, that gives people some sentences that don't make a lot of sense because there's no brackets right now on what people can be sentenced to for a robbery situation. And just remember, you know, in many of these, like, as I said, many of these more serious situations, there's other charges that are involved in it as well. And so you can't evaluate it completely in a vacuum. I think a lot of other states do it this way, and just saying 5 to life for any robbery, whether somebody is really beaten up really badly or just poked, this is the better way to go. So I think we ought to pass the bill.
For what purpose, senator from Rockingham? Senator Obenshain rise.
Mr. President, I'll rise to speak briefly to the bill.
There's the floor.
Mr. President, you know, over the past couple of years, we've heard a lot of discussion about mandatory minimums, okay? That mandatory minimums signal a lack of trust in our judges and juries, that we ought to trust our judges and juries to sentence people to an appropriate sentence for the crime that they've committed. What this bill does is it does exactly the opposite. It says we don't trust judges and we don't trust juries. We're going to impose mandatory maximums, okay? 5 to life, yes, that's the range. You don't like it? let's change the range for it. But what this is doing is setting mandatory maximums and saying we want to substitute our judgment for the judgment of the people who are sitting in that courtroom, listening to the facts of that case and making the decision about what sentence is appropriate given the conduct involved in that specific crime. And what we're doing is we are taking that away. And I think that the senator from Richmond can certainly identify cases and situations where maybe the range has been unfairly applied, or it appears that there has been an unjust result. And we spent a lot of time last night talking about the fact that judges can adjust sentences down from juries. And they very often do, somewhere in the neighborhood of about 20% of the time. I respectfully submit that when we try to substitute our judgment, whether it's by imposing mandatory minimums or mandatory maximums, we are taking that discretion away from the people who are in the best position to judge the degree of malice and the degree of punishment that is appropriate for the given situation. So I would hope that we would back up and vote against this bill.
Thank the senator. For what purpose does the junior senator from Richmond City, Senator Morrissey, rise?
Speaking one final time to SB 805, Mr.
Senator,
President.
has the floor.
I appreciate and respect the comments from the gentleman, from the senators from Rockingham, my other colleague regarding this. But let me point out a couple of facts. Number one, I looked at the impact of the proposed legislation. And this proposed legislation sets gradations of 5 years, 10 years, 20 years in life. And the conclusion was that the median prison sentences in recent robbery cases within the last several years are within the reduced statutory maximums proposed. So there's going to be no great change in this. Second of all, Senator Serval talked about other charges. Let me put this in proper context. An individual is robbed. They may be shot at the same time. They're facing perhaps aggravated malicious wounding, which is a minimum of 20 years. They're facing robbery, which is up to life. They're facing 3 years for that first firearm, mandatory 3 years, and mandatory 5 years for the firearm used in the other felony. Second, when you look at these gradations, 20, 10, 5, and then 1 to 5, please keep in mind that that's exactly what we're doing, for example, in B&E cases. We consider the conduct in B&E. Was it at nighttime or in the daytime? Was the building occupied? Was it not? We look at the offensive conduct and then assess a punishment. Same with arson. Was it a dwelling house or was it a warehouse? Was it occupied or was it not? We look at the conduct and then we assess a punishment. That's all I want to do with this bill. Look at the conduct of the robbery. If, on a lighter note, and I'll end on this point, if the last gradation is by any other means, if Todd Gilbert comes into my office, and he can be an imposing figure, he is tall and robust, and as you all know, I'm easily intimidated. And he demands that signed picture from Bill Stanley. And I clutch it to my breast and I said, I'm not going to give it to you. And he demands it. He doesn't threaten me with a gun, but he's tall and intimidating, and he takes that signed photograph, a prized possession, with him. That's any other means, and he could still get 1 to 5 years. So yes, there are gradations, but they are tied. There's a nexus to the offensive conduct. With that, Mr. President, I would ask that the body pass SB 805.
I thank the senator. The question is, shall Senate Bill 805 pass? All in favor of the motion will record their vote aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their vote? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 20, noes 20.
Ayes 20, noes 20. The chair votes aye. The bill passes.
Uncontested calendar, Senate bills on second reading.
Senator Saslaw.
Madam President, I move that all Senate bills on second reading on the uncontested calendar on pages 11 through 23, that's Senate bills 4 through Senate Bill 1024, be advanced to their engrossment in third reading in a block after the adoption of any amendments thereto. Any senator desiring to remove a bill from the block, please do so after the clerk has read the number of the bill.
The question is, shall the Senate bills on second reading on the uncontested calendar on pages 11 through 23, Senate Bill 4 through Senate Bill 1024, be engrossed and advanced to the third reading in the block after the adoption of the amendments thereto, that any senator desiring to remove a bill from the block do so after the clerk has read the number of the bill? Are all senators in favor of the motion say aye? Aye. The noes have the same right? Ayes have it. Bills in the block.
Senate Bill 4, reported from the Committee on Finance and Appropriations with amendment.
The senator from, looks like Arlington.
No.
Wait a minute, wrong start.
Franklin.
The senator from Franklin.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, can SB 4 come out of the block and go by for the day?
Without objection, the Senate Bill number 4 will come out of the block and go by for the day.
Senate Bill 49, reported from the Committee on Commerce and Labor. Senate Bill 142, reported from the Committee on Finance and Appropriations with amendments.
The senator from Henrico County, Senator Donovan.
Madam President, can that bill go by temporarily? Thank you.
Bill, here she comes.
Thank you, Mr. President. I apologize. I need a little caffeine for the rest of the... Madam President, excuse me.
I understand.
You can tell I needed caffeine. Thank you, Madam President. Ooh, I'm going to... This bill is an outstanding bill, Senate Bill 142, and I recommend that it pass. This second reading, then I will move the amendments.
The question is, shall the committee amendments be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Opposed, no. Ayes have it. The committee amendments are agreed to.
Senate Bill 178, reported from the Committee on Rehabilitation and Social Services with a substitute, and from the Committee on Finance and Appropriations.
The senator from Arlington. Senator Favola.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, I move that the substitute be agreed to.
The question is, shall the committee substitute be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The committee substitute is agreed to.
Senate Bill 297, reported from the Committee on Rehabilitation and Social Services with an amendment, and from the Committee on Finance and Appropriations with amendments.
The senator from Arlington, Senator Favola.
Thank you, Madam President. I move that the respective amendments be agreed to.
The question is, shall the respective committee amendments be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The committee amendments are agreed to.
Senate Bill 300, reported from the Committee on Education and Health with amendments, and from the Committee on Finance and Appropriation with amendments.
The senator from Franklin, Senator Stanley.
Thank you, Madam President. I now move that the committee amendments be agreed to.
The question is, shall the committee amendments be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The committee amendments are agreed to. The senator from Franklin, Senator Stanley.
Thank you, Madam President. I now move that the committee amendment with regard to the ones adopted in Finance and Appropriations be agreed to.
The question is, shall the committee amendments in Finance and Appropriations be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The committee amendments are agreed to.
Senate Bill 324, reported from the Committee on Education and Health with a substitute, and from the Committee on Finance and Appropriations.
The senator from Bath, Senator Deeds.
Madam President, I move that the
substitute from the Committee on Education and Health be agreed to?
The question is, shall the committee amendments from the Committee on Education and Health be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The committee amendments are agreed to.
Senate Bill 389, reported from the Committee on Rehabilitation and Social Services with a substitute, and from the Committee on Finance and Appropriations.
The Senator from Prince William, Senator McPike.
Madam President, I move that the substitute be agreed to.
The question is, shall the substitute be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. Ayes have it. Committee substitute agreed to.
Senate Bill 501, reported from the Committee on Rehabilitation and Social Services with amendments, and from the Committee on Finance and Appropriations.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. The Senator from Spotsylvania, Senator Reeves.
Thank you, Madam President. I would ask to approve the committee amendments.
The motion is, and you all heard the question, are all in favor that the committee amendments from, I guess that's the Committee on Rehabilitation and Social Services be agreed to, would say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Ayes have it. The committee members are agreed to.
Senate Bill 570, reported from the Committee on Rehabilitation and Social Services with a substitute, and from the Committee on Finance and Appropriations with an amendment.
The Senator from Williamsburg, Senator Mason.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, I move that we adopt the committee substitute.
The question is, shall the committee substitute be adopted? All in favor of the motion will say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The committee substitute is adopted. The Senator from Williamsburg, Senator Mason.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, I move that we agree to the committee amendment.
The question is, shall the committee amendments from Finance and Appropriations be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Opposed, no. Ayes have it. Committee amendments are agreed to.
Senate Bill 576, reported from the Committee on Finance and Appropriations with a substitute.
The Senator from Northern Fairfax, Senator Howard.
Madam President, I move the substitute be agreed to.
The question is, shall the substitute be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The committee substitute is agreed to.
Senate Bill 622, reported from the Committee on Rehabilitation and Social Services with a substitute, and from the Committee on Finance and Appropriations.
The Senator from Bath, Senator Deeds.
Madam President, I move that the committee substitute from the Committee on Rehabilitation and Social Services be agreed to.
The question is, shall the committee substitute from the Committee on Rehabilitation and Social Services be agreed to? All in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. Ayes have it. The committee substitute is agreed to. The Senator from Bath, Senator Deeds. You did both.
Senate Bill 629, reported from the Committee on Commerce and Labor with a substitute.
The Senator from Eastern Fairfax, Senator Searle.
Thank you, Madam President. Can that bill come out of the block and go by for the day?
Without objection, the bill will go by for the day.
Senate Bill 715, reported for the Committee on Rehabilitation and Social Services with amendments, and from the Committee on Finance and Appropriations with an amendment.
The senior senator from Richmond City, Senator McClellan.
Thank you, Madam President. I move that the amendments from Rehabilitation and Social Services be adopted.
The question is, shall the committee amendments from the Committee on Rehabilitation and Social Services be agreed to? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The committee amendments are agreed to. The senator from senior senator from Richmond City, Senator McClellan.
Thank you, Madam President. I move that the amendment from the Finance and Appropriations Committee be adopted.
The question is, shall the committee amendments from the Committee on Finance and Appropriation be agreed to? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Noes opposed say no. Ayes have it. The committee amendments are agreed to.
Senate Bill 738, reported from the Committee on Education and Health with a substitute, and from the Committee on Finance and Appropriations.
The senator from Bath, Senator Deeds.
Madam President, I move that the substitute from the Committee on Education and Health be agreed to.
The question is, shall the Committee on Education subcommittee be agreed to? All in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. Ayes have it. The committee substitute is agreed to.
Senate Bill 754, reported for the Committee on Commerce and Labor with a substitute.
The senator from Western Fairfax, Senator Marsden.
Thank you, Madam President. I move that the committee substitute be agreed to.
The question is, shall the committee substitute be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. Ayes have it. Committee substitute is agreed to.
Senate Bill 773, reported from the Committee on Finance and Appropriations with a substitute.
The senator from Franklin City, Senator Stanley.
Thank you, Madam President. Although I love Franklin City, I'm from Franklin County.
Franklin County.
But that's in your district, I think.
It is.
So if I had to move anywhere, it'd be in your district, Madam President. Madam President, I now move, and I might be in your district, who knows, in 2 years. I now move that the committee substitute for SB 773 be agreed to.
You've heard the question. All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The committee substitute is agreed to.
Senate Bill 794, reported for the Committee on Commerce and Labor with a substitute.
The senator from Accomack, Senator Lewis.
Madam President, I move adoption of the committee substitute.
The question is, shall the committee substitute be agreed to? All in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The committee substitute has been adopted.
Senate Bill 990, reported from the Committee on Finance and Appropriations with a substitute.
The senator from Roanoke City, Senator Edwards.
Mr. President, I move that the committee substitute be agreed to.
The question is, shall the committee substitute be agreed to? All in favor of the motion say aye. Those opposed, no. Ayes have it. The committee substitute is agreed to.
Senate Bill 992, reported from the Committee on Commerce and Labor. Senate Bill 1024, reported from the Committee on Rehabilitation and Social Services with a substitute, and from the Committee on Finance and Appropriations.
The senator from Lynchburg, Senator Peake.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I move the committee substitute be agreed to.
The question is, shall the Senate committee substitute be agreed to? All in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. Ayes have it. The committee substitute is agreed to. The question is, shall the Senate bills be engrossed in advance to the third reading? That is, all bills except for which one came in? Senate Bill 4 and Senate Bill 16. All those in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The bills are engrossed in advance to their third reading.
Yes.
The senior senator from Fairfax, Senator Saslaw.
Madam President, I move that all Senate bills now on third reading at the on the uncontested calendar, pages 11 through 25, Senate Bill 4 through 1024, that the rules be suspended and the third constitutional reading of the titles be waived.
The question is, shall the rules be suspended and the third reading of the titles of the bills be dispensed with? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all senators voted? Do any senator desire to change their vote? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 40, noes 0.
Ayes 40, noes 0. The rules are suspended. The constitutional reading is dispensed with. The senior senator from Fairfax.
Madam President, I move that all Senate bills now on third reading of the uncontested calendar, pages 11 through 23, that's Senate Bill 4 through 1024, be placed on their final passage in a block. Any senator desiring to remove a bill from the block, please do so after the clerk has read the number of the bill.
The question is, shall the rules be suspended and the third reading of the titles of the bills be dispensed with? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. The question is, shall the Senate bills on the uncontested calendar, third reading, pages 11 through 23, Senate Bill 4 through Senate Bill 1024, be placed upon their final passage in the block, with the understanding that any senator desiring a bill to be removed from the block will do so after the clerk has read the reading of the bill. All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The motion is agreed to. The bills are before us in the block. block. The clerk will read the number of the bills.
Senate Bill 49, Senate Bill 142, Senate Bill 178, Senate Bill 297, Senate Bill 300, Senate Bill 324, Senate Bill 389, Senate Bill...
Madam
Senator
President,
from Roanoke County, Senator Suline.
I request that Senate Bill 389 come out of the block.
Senate Bill 389 is out of the block.
Senate Bill 501, Senate Bill 570, Senate Bill 576, Senate Bill 622, Senate Bill 715, Senate Bill 738, Senate Bill 754, Senate Bill 773, Senate Bill 794, Senate Bill 990.
Madam President?
The Senator from Roanoke, Senator Edwards.
Okay, Senate Bill 992. I'm sorry. The next one.
On which page?
Oh, it's the next bill. It's on page 23. I jumped the gun. It's Senate Bill 992. Could have come out of the block.
Senate Bill 992 is out of the block.
Senate Bill 1024.
Are these exceptions? The question is, shall the bills in the block pass? That is, all bills except for Senate Bill 629, Senate Bill 4, Senate Bill 389, Senate Bill 992. All in favor of passage of the bills will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all senators voted? Does any senator desire to change their vote? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 40, noes 0.
Ayes 40, noes 0. The bills in the block pass.
Page 17.
On page 17.
Are we going back? Senate Bill 389.
Senate Bill 389.
Okay, Senator from Prince Williams, Senator McPike, Senate Bill 389.
Madam President, I move the bill pass, and speaking to that motion.
You have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Madam President. Senate Bill 389 is the omnibus ABC license reform bill that the Senator from Spotsylvania, Senator from Williamsburg, and several others of us on the ABC subcommittee have been working on roughly for the last 3 years. This is restructured of the licensing system to update to current standards. After Prohibition, we had about 12 license types and permits. It's ballooned to well over 120 or so. This actually cuts it down in half. So if you like consolidated licenses and reduction of the number of permit types and a more effective and streamlined government, you'll vote for this bill. Furthermore, it restructures the permit fees to better allocate the fee types to the resources allocated to ABC. They did a study over the last 18 months to ensure the alignment of these the fees to the license and permit type. So that is the bill, and happy to provide answer any questions on the bill.
The question is, shall Senate Bill 389 pass?
Madam President.
The Senator from Roanoke, Senator Suderline.
Will the Senator from Prince William yield for purpose of a question?
Will you yield, Senator? Will the Senator yield?
I yield.
Senator Suderline.
Thank you, Madam President. I've got the jokester from Franklin County in my ear. I had a question regarding the permit fees. I saw in there that the ABC board would have that authority to set that. How does that related to the current situation on setting such fees.
Madam President, I'd ask the senator from Roanoke that the current fee structures under current law are required to be voted on and changed by the General Assembly. As conceived in this bill through the enactment, if you point your attention to it, actually provides a delay. And so what happens is as the ABC board reviews the permits, they need to propose the new license proposed prior to the preceding General Assembly. So actually, we have the ability to look at it, have any feedback at the end of the year. I think it's the enactment is at the end of November, early December. So we have roughly 30, 45 days before General Assembly to provide any input. Additionally, there's roughly a 2-month period of industry review, and those fee adjustments would take place after April, roughly, or May of each year. So there's multiple passes in the new fee structure in terms of both review, comment, as well as the ability for the General Assembly to intercede.
The senator from Roanoke County, Senator Suline.
Thank you, Madam President. Would the senator yield for an additional question?
I yield.
The senator will yield.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you to the senator. So if the General Assembly is not able to come into an agreement, it would be what the board determined. Is that correct?
Madam President.
Senator from Prince William, Senator McPike.
Thank you, Madam President. I'd answer the gentleman that the structure as conceived here allows the ABC to recover their fees, so it pays for itself. And so if the board did find they had need of a service or adjustment to a fee based on the level of service, yes, it would be passed after industry review and comment as is a normal process.
I thank the senator. And just speaking briefly.
Senator Suline, Senator from Roanoke County.
Thank you. I think the one difference in some ways that's like DMV, except we still have to pass the actual fee amounts for DMV. And so I just wanted everyone to be aware of that and appreciate the senator for asking those questions.
No one else wishes to speak. The question is, shall Senate Bill 389 pass? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all senators voted? Do any senator desire to change their vote? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 39, noes 1.
Ayes 39, noes 1. The bill passes.
Madam President, having voted on the prevailing side on which we just passed, the last bill, I'd ask for reconsideration.
The question is, shall the vote by which the senator, by Senate Bill 389 was passed, shall the bill be reconsidered? And this is a recorded vote. All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all senators voted? Do any senator desire to change their vote? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 40, noes 0.
Ayes 40, noes 0. The senator from Prince William, Senator McPike.
Madam President, I move the bill passage and previously explained just about all 58 pages. Renew the motion to pass. Thank you.
The question is, shall Senate Bill 389, as previously explained, pass? You all have heard the motion. Are all in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all senators voted? Do any senator desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 40, noes 0.
Ayes 40, noes 0. Senate Bill 389 passed.
On page 23, Senate Bill 992.
The senator from Northern Chesapeake, Senator Spruill.
Thank you, Madam President. Senate Bill 992 will allow new generation facilities that have received Virginia's certification and operational permits prior to the effective date of the regulation to receive an allocation of a CO2 allowance for the year for 3 years operation based on the projection of the permit. At the end of the 3 years, control period would have been a true fact against the mission. After 3 years, the new facility would be allocated allowance in the same manner as the existing facilities under the regulation. I move that the bill pass.
The question is, shall Senate Bill 992 pass? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are all senators ready to vote? Have all senators voted? Do any senator desire to change their vote? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 25, noes 14.
Ayes 25, noes 14. The bill passed.
Regular calendar, Senate bills on second reading. Senate Bill 253, a bill relating to deeds of trust, fiduciary duties.
President.
The senator from Russell, Senator Chafin.
Madam President.
King George.
The senator from, he's standing.
King George.
The senator from King George, Senator Stewart.
Thank you, Madam President. Rise for a motion.
The senator has the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. I'd move, having voted on the prevailing side by which we adopted the amendment to Senate Bill 253, we reconsider that vote.
The question is, shall the vote by which the Senate passed the committee amendment, the floor amendment, be reconsidered? All in favor of the motion will record the votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are all senators ready to vote? Have all senators voted? Do any senator desire to change their vote? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 40, noes 0.
Ayes 40, no 0. The vote is reconsidered. Senator Chafin, the senator from Russell.
Thank you, Madam President. With a motion that we pass the floor amendment, I recommend that we reject the floor amendment.
With the recommendation that the floor amendment be rejected, shall the floor amendment be adopted? All in favor?
Madam President.
The senator from Fairfax, Senator Peterson.
Is that my floor amendment? Well, don't I usually make that motion? May I speak to the motion?
The senator has floor.
Well, I don't. He recommends to reject my amendment, which I appreciate his opinion. It's my amendment. I actually think it's a great amendment. And this is an amendment that will protect consumers and debtors and small people. Small people. Not physically small people, but small people that don't have the highest paid lobbyists crawling the halls of this great, great capital. So I hope you do stick with me on this amendment. Thank you.
Madam President.
The senator from Russell, Senator Chafin.
Speaking to the motion, so in an effort to be a bit more articulate than perhaps yesterday, the deed of trust that is signed by all the parties, the deed of trust that everybody has agreed to, allows the Commissioner of Accounts and ultimately perhaps the court to have objective criteria by which to review the matter, as opposed to the subjective criteria for the reviewing of the actions of the trustee in foreclosures. I ask the body to reject the floor amendment.
The question is, okay, the senator from Roanoke City, Senator
Madam President, this has to do with ignoring all fiduciary duties of a trustee and saying only what is in the deed of trust is the fiduciary's responsibility. Let me tell you about a case I had 33 years ago in the Supreme Court of Virginia. It exemplifies the numerous kinds of violations of fiduciary duties, not just those that maybe a Commissioner of Accounts might pick up, but maybe not. And not every case, at least where I live, goes through a Commissioner of Accounts, as far as I'm aware. But what happened in this case was a co-trustee was an officer of the lending institution. The co-trustee at the sale of the foreclosure sale purchased the property. That's a clear violation of fiduciary duties. The trustee cannot purchase the property that the trustee is selling. A clear violation of fiduciary duties. The Supreme Court reversed the case. Now, that's just one example. And there could be many, many examples. Now, the Commissioner of Accounts, maybe in some places, looks at it, but the Commissioner of Accounts is not necessarily going to pick up all these kinds of violations. There's numerous violations of fiduciary duties that are potentially out there. And so what you're doing is taking away the fiduciary responsibilities of a trustee under deed of trust and say only what's in the written document of the deed of trust is their responsibility. I think that's wrong, and I think we should support the amendment from the gentleman from Eastern Fairfax City.
The senator from, it looks like the senator from Richmond City was first.
Madam President, question of parliamentary inquiry to either you or the clerk's staff. Are we voting right now on Senator Peterson's amendment that we heard debate on yesterday, or are we voting on the motion by the gentleman, by Senator Chafin, to approve the amendment with the recommendation that it be rejected?
Same thing. Same motion.
So, further question. If we supported Senator Peterson's amendment yesterday and we are desirous of supporting it today, would we vote yay?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Madam Chair.
The senator from Fairfax City, but I have the senator from James City County before you came up in queue, so Senator Norman.
Thank you, Madam President. I rise
Thank you.
in support of the motion on it. The gentleman from Roanoke suggested that he had a factual situation 33 years ago. I'm not even sure they had mortgages then, but what I would say to you, Madam President, is that I would have to take umbrage at it if, in fact, a trustee or a substitute trustee purchased a foreclosure sale. I do not know a commissioner of accounts in the Commonwealth of Virginia in 2020 that would not pick up on that, because it is disclosed on the foreclosure accounting that who the highest bidder was. So I take umbrage at the suggestion that those irregularities would not be picked up.
Thank you, Senator. The senator from Fairfax City, Senator Peterson.
Madam Chair, or Madam President, I actually rise for a request. And my request is this bill go by for the day. This is a major issue. We're missing somebody in this body who would break a tie. I voted to reconsider the bill, but I do ask consideration go by for the day.
Without objection, bill will. Without objection, the bill will go by for the day.
Madam President.
The senator from Franklin.
Thank you, Madam President. I now, having voted on the prevailing side in which Senate Bill 992 passed, I now move that we reconsider that vote so someone can make a proper vote.
The question is, shall the vote by which the Senate passed Senate Bill 992 be reconsidered? All in favor of that motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are all senators ready to vote? Have all senators voted? Do any senator desire to change their vote? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 40, no 0.
Ayes 40, no 0. The senator from Northern Chesapeake, Senator Spruill.
Thank you, Madam President. As previously stated, as the bill has been explained, I move that the bill pass.
The question is, shall Senate Bill 992, as previously explained, pass? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are all senators ready to vote? Have all senators voted? Do any senator desire to change their vote? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 27, noes 13.
Ayes 27, noes 13. The bill passed.
Returning to page 24. Senate Bill 612, a bill to establish the Commission for Historical Statues in the United States Capitol to provide for the replacement of the Robert E. Lee statue in the National Statuary Hall collection at the United States Capitol.
The senator from Hampton,
There's
Senator Locke.
or substitute.
Madam President, I move that Senate Bill 612 be passed by for the day.
Without objection, the bill go by for the day.
Senate Bill 911, a bill relating to parking of vehicles, electric vehicle charging spots, civil penalties. And there is a floor amendment.
The junior senator from Chesterfield, Senator Hashmi.
Thank you, Madam President. I request that I move that the reading of the floor amendment be waived.
The question is, shall the reading of the floor amendment be waived? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The reading of the floor amendment is waived. Senator Hashmi.
I move that the floor amendment be agreed to, and speaking to the technical amendment.
You have the floor.
This is just a slight technical amendment on line 12, just to add new language that indicates that it would be regard to the vehicle that is not an electric or electric plug vehicle.
Thank you. The question is, shall the floor amendment, as presented by the junior senator from Chesterfield, be agreed to? All in favor of the motion, say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The floor amendment passes. Senator from Chesterfield, Senator Hashmi.
I move that the bill be engrossed and advanced to its third reading.
The question is, shall the bill be engrossed and advanced to its third reading? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The bill is engrossed and advanced to its third reading.
Senate Bill 183, a bill relating to memorials for war veterans, reported from the Committee on Local Government with a substitute, and from
Local government
with a second substitute, and there is a floor amendment.
The senator from Hampton, Senator Locke.
Okay, Madam President, I move that the first substitute with the recommendation that the first substitute from local government be rejected, I move that it pass.
With the recommendation that the substitute from the Committee on Local Government be rejected, the motion is, shall the substitute pass? All in favor of that motion will say aye. Noes?
No.
The noes have it. The substitute is rejected. Senator Locke.
Madam President, I move that the second substitute from the Committee on Local Government be agreed to.
The question is, shall the second substitute from the Committee on Local Government be agreed to? All in favor of that motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The committee substitute is agreed to. The senator from Hampton, Senator Locke.
Reeves.
The senator from Spotsylvania, Senator Reeves, for the floor amendment.
Thank you, Madam President. I move that the reading of the floor amendment be waived.
The question is, shall the reading of the floor amendment be waived? All in favor of the motion will say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The reading of the floor amendment is waived. Senator from Spotsylvania, Senator Reeves.
Madam President, I move that the floor amendment be agreed to. And speaking to that,
you have the floor, sir.
Madam President, I think there's been a lot of discussion about monuments, and it's been politicized quite a bit. And I think one of the things this body is good at is depoliticizing issues. And this is a very important issue to me, and one of which I've had a lot of dialogue with my colleagues on the other side, having members that have fought in every major battle and worn the cloth of our country. One thing I think that might just be an overlook, or maybe it's just one word, but it does do something, and that word has a powerful meaning, and the word is destroy. And once something is destroyed, Madam President, you can never get it back. And so I think it's important. I don't think it was the intent of this body or the patron of the bill, but as these bills get mixed together, sometimes these words are in there. My floor amendment just takes the word destroy out and replaces it with the same language that's in 3 other sections of this bill when it was put back together. And so I would ask that we remove the word destroy, replace it with some very simple words that are already contained, contextualizing, covering, or altering. And that would be my motion.
The question is, shall the floor amendment be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The floor amendment is agreed to. The senator from Hampton, Senator Locke.
Madam President, I move that we engross and advance the bill to its third reading.
The question is, shall the bill be engrossed and advanced to its third constitutional reading? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. Senate Bill 183 is engrossed and advanced to its third reading.
Senate Bill 5, a bill relating to the Board of Education uniform minimum standards for modern public school buildings, reported from the Committee on Finance and Appropriations with amendments.
The senator from Franklin, Senator Stanley.
Thank you, Madam President. I now move that the committee amendments be agreed to.
The question is, shall the committee amendments be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The committee amendments are agreed to. The senator from Franklin.
Thank you, Madam President. And I now move that Senate Bill 5 be engrossed and advanced to its third constitutional reading.
The question is, shall Senate Bill 5 be engrossed and advanced to its third constitutionally required be engrossed and advanced? All in favor say aye. No have the same right. The ayes have it. The bill is engrossed and advanced.
Senate Bill 134, a bill relating to school boards, teachers' planning time and planning periods, reported from the Committee on Finance and Appropriations with amendments.
The senator from King George, Senator Stewart.
Madam President.
The senator from Rockingham, Senator Obenshain.
Move that the committee amendments be agreed to.
The question is, shall the committee amendments be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The committee amendments are agreed to. Now, okay, Senator from King George is back. Senator King George is your bill, 134.
Thank you, Madam President. Actually, I wanted to carry that by for the day, and I'd still like to do that at this point, if I may.
Without objection, the bill will go by for the day.
Thank you.
Senate Bill 187, a bill relating to TANF time limitations.
The senator
reported from the Committee on Finance and Appropriations with amendment.
The senator from Arlington, Senator Favola.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, I move that the amendment be agreed to.
The question is, shall the committee amendment be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The committee amendment is agreed to. The senator from Arlington, Senator Favola.
Thank you, Madam President. I move that this Senate Bill 187 be engrossed in advance to its third reading.
The question is, shall Senate Bill 187 be engrossed and advanced to its third reading? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The bill is engrossed and advanced.
Senate Bill 248, a bill relating to the Virginia Gun Violence Intervention and Prevention Fund, reported from the Committee on the Judiciary with a substitute and from the Committee on Finance and Appropriations with an amendment.
The senator from Arlington, Senator Favola.
Thank you, Madam President. I move that the substitute reported from the Judiciary Committee be agreed to.
The question is, shall the substitute from the Committee on Judiciary be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The committee substitute is agreed to. The senator from Arlington, Senator Favola.
Madam President, I move that the amendment from the Committee on Finance and Appropriations be agreed to.
The question is, shall the committee amendment from the Committee on Finance and Appropriations be agreed to? All in favor of that motion will say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The committee amendment is agreed to.
Thank you, Madam President.
The senator from Arlington, Senator Favola.
Okay. Madam President, I move that the bill now be engrossed in advance to its third reading.
The question is, shall the bill be engrossed in advance to its third reading? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. Senate Bill 248 is engrossed in advance to its third reading.
Senate Bill 382, a bill relating to coverage for prosthetic devices and components.
The senator
from the Committee on Finance and Appropriations.
The senator from Prince Williams, Senator McPike.
Madam President, I move the bill be engrossed in advance to its third read.
The question is, shall the bill be engrossed in advance to its third reading? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The bill is engrossed and advanced to its third reading.
Senate Bill 421, a bill relating to open-end credit plans, Fairness and Lending Act, reported from the Committee on Commerce and Labor with a substitute and from the Committee on Finance and Appropriations with amendments.
The senator from Hampton, Senator Locke.
Madam President, I move that the substitute be agreed to from Commerce and Labor.
The question is, shall the committee substitute from the Committee on Commerce and Labor be agreed to? All in favor of that motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The substitute is agreed to. The senator from Hampton, Senator Locke.
Madam President, I move that the amendments from Finance and Appropriations be agreed to.
The question is, shall the amendments from the Committee on Finance and Appropriations be agreed to? All in favor of that motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The committee amendment is agreed to. The senator from Hampton, Senator Locke.
Madam President, I move that Senate Bill 421 be engrossed and advanced to its third reading.
The question is, shall the bill be engrossed and advanced to its third reading? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The bill is engrossed and advanced to its third reading.
Senate Bill 452, a bill relating to motor vehicle fuel sales tax in certain counties and cities, reported from the Committee on Finance and Appropriations with a substitute.
The senator from Roanoke City, Senator Edwards.
Mr. President, I move that the committee substitute be agreed to.
The question is, shall the committee substitute from the Committee on Finance and Appropriations be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The substitute will be agreed to. Senator from Roanoke City, Senator Edwards.
Mr. President, I move that the bill be engrossed and advanced to its third reading.
The question is, shall the bill be engrossed and advanced to its third reading? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. Senate Bill 452. The ayes have it, first of all. Now the bill, Senate Bill 452 will be engrossed and advanced to its third reading.
Senate Bill 561, a bill relating to workers' compensation, compensability of post-traumatic stress disorder incurred by a law enforcement officer or firefighter, reported from the Committee on Commerce and Labor with a substitute and from the Committee on Finance and Appropriations with a substitute.
The senator from Fauquier, Senator Vogel.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move that the substitute be agreed to.
We need to
From the Committee on Commerce and Labor.
reject.
Sorry, the Committee on Finance. I apologize.
Do you want to reject it?
Reject the first.
Oh, Madam Chairman, I would like to move that we reject the committee substitute added in Commerce and Labor and instead accept the committee substitute.
With the recommend.
Yes, and accept the Finance Committee substitute.
Okay. So with the recommendation that the substitute be rejected, the question is, shall the committee substitute be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. No. The noes have it. The committee substitute is rejected. The senator from Fauquier, Senator Vogel.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I apologize for having done that so poorly. Madam President, I move that the Finance Committee substitute be adopted.
The question is, shall the Finance Committee substitute, the Finance and Appropriations substitute be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The Senate Finance and Appropriations substitute is agreed to. The senator from Fauquier, Senator Vogel.
Thank you, Madam President. I move that the bill be engrossed and advanced to its third reading.
The question is, shall the bill be engrossed and advanced to its third reading? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The motion is, the bill is engrossed and advanced to its third reading.
Senate Bill 564, a bill relating to the Virginia Hearing Loss Identification and Monitoring System, language development for children who are deaf or hard of hearing, reported from the Committee on Education and Health with a substitute and from the Committee on Finance and Appropriations with an amendment.
The senator from Roanoke City, Senator Edwards.
Mr. President, I move that the committee substitute be agreed to.
The question is, shall the committee substitute from Committee on Education and Health be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The committee substitute is agreed to. The senator from Roanoke City, Senator Edwards.
Mr. President, I move that the bill be engrossed.
Committee amendment.
Committee amendment be agreed to.
The question is, shall the committee amendment be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The committee amendment is agreed to. Senator from Roanoke City, Senator Edwards.
Mr. President, I move that the bill be engrossed and advanced to its third reading.
The question is, shall the bill be engrossed and advanced to its third reading? All in favor of the motion will say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The bill is engrossed and advanced to its third reading.
Senate Bill 632, a bill relating to public utilities energy storage capacity in the Commonwealth, reported from the Committee on Commerce and Labor with a substitute, and there is 4 floor amendments.
Little ones. The little ones.
The senator from Eastern Fairfax, Senator Serovo.
I move the committee substitute.
The question is, shall the committee substitute be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The committee substitute is agreed to. The senator from Eastern Fairfax, Senator Serovo.
Madam President, I move that the amendments taken up in a block and that we waive reading of all the amendments.
The question is, shall the bills in the block be taken? The question is, shall we waive the reading of the floor amendments in the block? All in favor of the motion will say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The bills will be taken up in the block. The senator from Eastern Fairfax, Senator Serovo.
Thank you, Madam President. I would move the 4 amendments in a block and speak to that motion.
You have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. These 4 amendments just basically update the numbers in the bill to an agreement that was made after the bill was filed. It raises the megawatts from 1,000 megawatts to 2,700, and it also raises the lowers the public, raises the utility percentage to 65 and the private percentage to 35 of this energy storage that's going to be procured. And I would move the amendments pass.
The question is, shall the floor amendments the senator from Bedford, Senator Newman.
Mr. President, speaking briefly to the floor amendment.
You have the floor, sir.
Madam President, when this came through with 1,000 megawatts, I got to tell you it was a bit controversial, but we went along with it. There is provisions within this bill that states that this is going to be in the public interest. There is no indication of how much ratepayers are going to be charged because it's in the public interest. Mr. President, I would tell you that we heard in subcommittee, in Senator Spruill's subcommittee, that 1,000 megawatts was a lot. That was the amount. This takes it to 2,700 megawatts and continues to say, as I see it, that even that amount will be in the public interest, and there's no indication on this floor how much that's going to cost consumers. Mr. President, that would be a pretty big change to what was a pretty big bill.
Thank you, Senator. The senator from Eastern Fairfax, Senator Serovo.
Thank you, Madam President. Speaking to the amendments.
You have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Madam President. Well, as I said earlier, there was an agreement reached between the various stakeholders in the administration and this that has happened right after this bill passed. What this has to do with is energy storage. And if we're going to be making big investments in wind or solar or other types of technologies that don't run at night, the only way to have that is to have energy storage. The state of New York is making massive gigawatt investments in energy storage. And this brings us up to speed with what's going on in some other states. I would note that when this was studied, I think it was last year or the year before, in the study that came out said that if the state deploys 1.1 megawatts of energy storage, this annual net benefits to consumers is expected to be $20 to $58 million. And so there's a net savings from the investment. And it just takes time to build up to this. There's a lot of new technologies coming out on it. What we're talking about is things like pumped hydro, flywheel technologies, electrochemical, which is the batteries that Tesla is making. There's thermal technologies, electrical stuff, there's chemical storage. And I would just note that 35% of the energy storage that's going to be done in this bill is being done in the private sector, not by the utility. The agreement was reached that 65% is going to be done by the utility, 35% is going to be procured privately, not by the incumbent utility. And again, this these amendments represent the agreement of the stakeholders and the administration. I would hope the amendments would pass.
There being no other speakers. Okay, the senator from James City, Senator Norman.
Thank you, Madam President. I would hope without objection that we could pass this bill by for the day. I think it's a fairly substantial change, and I'd like to take a look at it if you don't mind. Thank you, sir.
Without objection, the bill will go by for the day.
Senate Bill 710, a bill relating to the regulation of sales of electricity under third-party sales agreements, exempt resales of electricity by the owner of a multifamily residential building, etc. Reported from the Committee on Commerce and Labor.
The senior senator from Richmond City, Senator McClellan.
Madam President, could that bill go by for the day?
Without objection, the bill will go by for the day.
Senate Bill 731, a bill relating to electric utility regulation, authorized rate of return. Reported from the Committee on Commerce and Labor with an amendment.
The senior senator from Richmond City, Senator McClellan.
Thank you, Madam President. I move the committee amendment be adopted.
The question is, shall the committee amendment be adopted? All in favor of the motion will say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The committee amendment is adopted. The senior senator from Richmond City, Senator McClellan.
Thank you, Madam President. I move the bill be engrossed and passed to its third reading.
The question is, shall the bill be engrossed and advanced to its third reading? All in favor of the motion will say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Senate Bill 731 is engrossed and advanced to its third reading.
Senate Bill 732, a bill relating to the establishment and operation of a health benefit exchange for the Commonwealth Assessments Department of Taxation Information Sharing. Reported from the Committee on Commerce and Labor with a substitute, and from the Committee on Finance and Appropriations with a substitute.
The senior senator from Richmond City, Senator McClellan.
Madam President, could this go by temporarily?
Bill will go by temporarily.
Thank you.
Senate Bill 853, a bill relating to public schools, anti-hate instruction. Reported from the Committee on Education and Health with a substitute, and from the Committee on Finance and Appropriations.
The senator from Northwestern Fairfax, Senator Boysko.
Madam President, I move the committee substitute.
The question is, shall the committee substitute be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those no, opposed.
Madam President, I move the bill be engrossed and advanced to its third reading.
The question is, shall the bill be engrossed and advanced to its third reading? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The bill is engrossed and advanced to its third reading.
Senate Bill 890, a bill relating to transportation. Reported from the Committee on Finance and Appropriations with a substitute.
The senior senator from Fairfax, Senator Saslaw.
Madam President, that's still kind of a work in progress, and we hope to have some stuff for you tomorrow. But we're pretty close to getting something that a whole lot of people can agree on. Okay, so I move that it go by for the day.
Without objection, the bill will go by for the day.
Senate Bill 972, a bill relating to vehicle registration for Public Safety Trust Fund. Reported from the Committee on Transportation with amendments, and from the Committee on Finance and Appropriations.
The senator from Roanoke City, Senator Edwards.
Mr. President, could this bill go by for the day? We're working on a really good amendment. Thank you, Mr. President.
Without objection.
Senate Bill 991, a bill relating to the Department of Social Services, Office of New Americans Created. Reported from the Committee on Rehabilitation and Social Services with a substitute, and from the Committee on Finance and Appropriations with an amendment.
The junior senator from Chesterfield, Senator Hashmi.
Madam President, I move the substitute from the Committee on Rehabilitation and Social Services.
The question is, shall the committee substitute from the Committee on Rehabilitation and Social Services be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The committee substitute is agreed to. The junior senator from Chesterfield, Senator Hashmi.
I move the amendment from the Committee on Finance and Appropriations.
The question is, shall the committee amendments from the Committee on Finance and Appropriations be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The committee amendments from the Committee on Finance and Appropriations are agreed to. The senator from the junior senator from Chesterfield County, Senator Hashmi.
Madam President, I move that SB 991 be engrossed and advanced to its third reading.
The question is, shall the bill be engrossed and advanced to its third reading? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. Senate Bill 991 is engrossed and advanced to its third reading.
Uncontested calendar. Senate bills on first reading.
Madam Chair.
Whose voice?
Madam Chair.
Senator from Fairfax City, Senator Peterson.
Madam Chair, I apologize for popping up. Having voted on the prevailing side by which we engrossed Senate
Senator
Bill.
Peterson?
Yes,
We'll
ma'am.
come back at the end of the calendar if you don't mind.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
And I'm sorry, returning to page 33, Senate Bill 732. Senate Bill 732.
The senior senator from Richmond City, Senator McClellan.
Thank you, Madam President. With the recommendation that we reject the Commerce and Labor substitute, I ask that the substitute be accepted.
With the recommendation that the substitute be rejected, the question is, shall the committee substitute be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no.
No.
The noes have it. The committee substitute is rejected. The senator from Richmond City, Senator McClellan.
Thank you, Madam President. I ask that the substitute from the Committee on Finance and Appropriations be adopted.
The question is, shall the committee substitute from the Committee on Finance and Appropriation be adopted? All in favor of that motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The committee committee substitute is agreed to. The senior senator from Richmond City, Senator McClellan.
Madam President, I move that Senate Bill 732 be engrossed and passed to its third reading.
The question is, shall the bill be engrossed and advanced to its third reading? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The bill is engrossed and advanced to its third reading.
Uncontested calendar. Senate bills on first reading.
The senior senator from Fairfax, Senator Saslaw.
Madam President, I move that all Senate bills on first reading on the uncontested and regular calendars, pages 38 through 55, Senate Bill 42 through Senate Bill 1038, that the rules be suspended and the first constitutional reading of the titles be dispensed with.
The question is, shall the rules be suspended and the first reading of the titles of Senate bills on the uncontested and regular calendar, pages 38 through 55, that is Senate Bill 42 through Senate Bill 1038, be dispensed with? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all senators voted? Do any senator desire to change his vote? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 40, no 0.
Ayes 40, no 0. The constitutional reading? The reading is dispensed with. The senior senator from Fairfax, Senator Saslaw.
Madam President, I now move that those said bills go by for the day.
The question is, shall the Senate bills on the uncontested and regular calendars now on second reading be passed by for the day? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The bills will go by for the day.
On page 56, uncontested calendar, Senate Joint Resolution on third reading. Senate Joint Resolution 81, directing the Joint Commission on Technology and Science to study consumer data privacy in the Commonwealth report. And there is a floor amendment.
The senator from Henrico, Senator Donovan.
Thank you, Madam President. Speak to the floor amendment.
You have floor.
Go 5 for the day.
Yes. I'm so sorry. I was confused by the fact that we had the floor amendment. Madam President, may that bill go by for the day?
Without objection, the bill will go by for the day.
Regular calendar, Senate Joint Resolutions on third reading. Senate Joint Resolution 35, establishing a joint subcommittee to study barrier crimes and criminal history records checks. Report.
The senator from Roanoke City, Senator Edwards.
Madam President, I move that the bill pass or the resolution be agreed to.
The question is, shall the resolution be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The resolution is agreed to. The senator from Roanoke City, Senator Edwards.
Mr. President, I move that SJR 39 be agreed to.
I need to read the title, Senator. Senate Joint Resolution 39, directing the Virginia State Crime Commission to study the effect of abolishing jury sentencing on the justice system. Report.
Now the senator from Roanoke City, Senator Edwards.
Mr. President, I move that the resolution be agreed to.
The question is, shall the resolution be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Ayes have it. The resolution is agreed to.
Senate Joint Resolution 66, establishing a joint subcommittee to study the development of a framework for regulated adult use of cannabis and medical cannabis. Report.
The senator from Alexandria, Senator Eben.
Thank you, Madam President. I move the resolution be agreed to, and speaking to that request. Okay.
The senator has the floor.
Thank you. This is pretty much what the clerk described in the title. It's a joint commission to study marijuana, the potential of marijuana use in the Commonwealth. Right now, we have a bill on marijuana decriminalization that has not passed or come out of finance yet. But in the event that we move forward, and it looks like things will move forward in the next coming years, we need to be responsible at how we do that and also look at the medical framework. If we were to move forward, there's things about distribution of marijuana, growing of marijuana, keeping it away from children, banking, and so forth. So with that, I ask that we adopt the resolution.
The question is, shall the resolution be adopted? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The resolution is agreed to.
Senate Joint Resolution 67, directing the Joint Audit and Review Commission to study and make recommendations for how Virginia should legalize and regulate the growth, sale, and possession of marijuana and address the impacts of marijuana prohibition. Report.
The senior senator from Richmond City, Senator McClellan.
Thank you, Madam President. I move that the resolution be agreed to. And speaking to the resolution,
you have the floor, Senator.
This study is similar to, but more comprehensive than the one that we just passed. This would have JLARC to study, in addition to the issues that the senator from Alexandria mentioned. Coordinating with that working group would also study the health effects, the impacts on how do we keep children from gaining access to marijuana, and addressing the socioeconomic impact of the historic prohibition of marijuana on particular communities, and how those communities can now have the possibility to benefit from the legal sale of marijuana, where they had disproportionate negative impacts from selling marijuana when it was illegal. And JLARC feels that they are in the best position to study this, but will work closely with the work group that we just adopted, and I move the resolution passed.
The question is, shall the resolution be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The resolution is agreed to.
Uncontested calendar, Senate Joint Resolutions on first reading.
You just read them by title.
Senate Joint Resolution 15. Three too many. Senate Joint Resolution 15, requesting the Department of Education to study the teacher licensure process and the assessment requirements therein for any inherent biases that may prevent minority teacher candidates from entering the profession. Report. Senate Joint Resolution 38, directing the Joint Commission on Technology and Science to study the safety, quality of life, and economic consequences of weather and climate-related events on the coastal areas in Virginia. Report. Senate Joint Resolution 53, requesting the Department of Environmental Quality to study revised priority ranking criteria for grants from the Stormwater Local Assistance Fund to include reduction of nitrogen pollution. Report. Memorial resolutions.
The senator from Fairfax, Senator Saslaw.
Mr. President, I move the memorial resolutions on pages 58 and 59, HJR 166 through SJR 88, be considered in a block in the usual manner, waiving the reading of the resolutions thereof with the understanding that any senator desiring to have a resolution removed from the block do so after the clerk has read the title of the resolution.
The question is, shall the memorial resolutions on pages 58 through 59, House Joint Resolution 166 through Senate Joint Resolution 88, be considered in the block in the usual manner, waiving the reading of the resolution thereof, with the understanding that any senator desiring a resolution removed from the block will do so after the clerk has read the title of the resolution. All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The motion is agreed to. The resolutions are before us in the block. The clerk will read the title of the memorial resolutions.
House Joint Resolution 166, celebrating the life of the Honorable Mary T. Christian.
The senator from Hampton, Senator Locke.
Madam President, can House Joint Resolution 166 come out of the block?
Without objection, the House Joint Resolution is out of the block.
House Joint Resolution 170, celebrating the life of Thomas Franklin Repass, United States Navy, retired. House Joint Resolution 171, celebrating the life of John Odom. House Joint Resolution 172, celebrating the life of Amanda Doan Holly. House Joint Resolution 173, celebrating the life of Russell Lee Scott. Senate Joint Resolution 88, celebrating the life of the Honorable Gerald L. Blouse.
The senator from Spotsylvania, Senator Reed.
Thank you, Madam President. Can we take SJR 88 out of the block, please?
SJR 88 come out of the block.
Can we take it by for the day as well?
And go by for the day without objection. The resolutions will be agreed to in the usual manner. All in favor of agreeing to the memorial resolutions, please rise. The resolutions are agreed to.
House Joint Resolution 166.
The senator from Hampton, Senator Locke.
Madam President, House Joint Resolution 166 is the House version commemorating the life of the Honorable Mary T. Christian. I move that we agree to the resolution.
The resolution will be agreed to in the usual manner. All in favor of agreeing to the resolution, please rise. The resolution is agreed to.
Commending resolutions.
The senior senator from Fairfax, Senator Saslaw.
Madam President, I move that the commending resolutions on pages 59 through 61, that's HJR 90 through SR 24, be considered in a block by voice vote, waiving the reading of the resolutions with the understanding that any senator desiring to remove a resolution from the block will do so after the clerk has read the number of the resolution.
The question is, shall the commending resolutions on pages 59 through 61, House Joint Resolution 90 through Senate Joint Resolution 24, be considered in a block by voice vote, waiving the reading of the resolutions with the understanding that any senator desiring a resolution removed from the block will do so after the clerk has read the number of the resolution. All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The motion is agreed to. The resolutions are before us in the block. The clerk will read the number of the resolutions.
House Joint Resolutions 90, 167, 168, 169, 174, 175. Senate Joint Resolutions 78, which has floor amendments.
Madam President.
Oh, the senior senator from Richmond City, Senator McClellan.
Thank you. Could SJR 78 come out of the blocks, please?
SJR 78 out of the block.
85, 90, 91, 16.
Madam President, can SJR 91 come out of the block and buy for the day?
Beach, the SJR, did you say 91?
91 come out of the block and buy for the
91
day.
out of the block and buy for the day.
16, Senate Resolution 16, 18, 19, 24.
The question is, shall the resolutions be agreed to with the exception of Senate Joint Resolution 91 and Senate Joint Resolution 78? All in favor of agreeing to the resolutions will say aye. Those opposed, no. The resolutions are agreed to. Returning to Senate Joint Resolution 78, the senior senator from Richmond City.
Thank you, Madam President. I believe there's a floor amendment.
There are 4.
Yes. Madam President, I move the waiving of the reading of the floor amendments.
The question is that the floor amendment reading of the floor amendment be waived. All in favor of the motion will say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The reading of the floor amendment is waived.
Thank you, Madam
The senior senator from Richmond City, Senator McClellan.
Thank you, Madam President. I move that the floor amendments be adopted in a block.
The question is, shall the floor amendments be adopted in the block? All in favor of the motion will say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The floor amendments are adopted in the block. The senior senator from Richmond City,
Thank you,
McClellan.
Thank you, Madam President. Now I move passage of the resolution.
The question is, shall the resolution be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The resolution is agreed to.
Page 25. 180.
83.
Fairfax City.
Returning to page 25, Senate Bill 183.
The senator from Fairfax City, Senator Peterson.
Madam Chair, having voted on the prevailing side by which we engrossed Senate Bill 183, I move we reconsider that vote for purposes of a floor amendment.
The question is, shall we reconsider the engrossment of Senate Bill 183? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all senators voted? Do any senator desire to change their vote? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 40, no 0.
Ayes 40, no 0. The senator from Fairfax City, Senator Peterson?
Yes, I move to waive the reading of the floor amendment, Madam President.
The question is, shall we waive the reading of the floor amendment? All in favor would say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The reading of the floor amendment has been waived.
I'm sorry.
That's all right. Madam President.
Yes, sir.
Respectfully, that we ask that we pass this by for the day.
Without objection, Senate Bill 183 will go by for the day. The senior senator from Fairfax County, Senator Saslow.
Madam President, I inquire of the clerks that complete the calendar for today.
The calendar that kept on giving is complete.
I can't believe it.
Oh, the senator from Russell, Senator Chafin?
Yes, ma'am. Madam President, may we return to the morning hour briefly?
We will return to the morning hour. Senator Chafin, you have the floor.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam President. I'd like to direct your attention to the gallery where we have present with us today Pulaski County Board of Supervisors members Laura Walters and John Travis, and their county administrator, Jonathan Sweet. Pulaski County is situated on the New River, along the New River, which is located in the east end of Senate District 38. And I must inform you, Madam President, that living therein are some of the finest people in all of the New River Valley region. They're industrious and hardworking and intelligent. Madam President, I hope it would be the pleasure of the Senate to give the warmest welcome to our friends from Pulaski County.
I see that they're already standing. So on behalf of Senator Chafin and the members of the Senate, and of course all of us present, we want to welcome you to the Senate of Virginia. And as Senator Chafin said, he said that you're some of the finest people in America, so I believe that. And so we hope that you will come back and see us again soon. Let's give them an applause for being with us today. The Senator from Bath, Senator Deeds.
Madam President.
It's fine. I'm used to it now.
I apologize. Remaining in the morning hour, I was advised that the mayor of the city of Lexington, Frank Friedman, and two members of the city council, Chuck Smith and Leslie Strong, were in the gallery. I'm not sure they're still there, but I would ask that you give them the greetings of the Senate and thank them for coming down wherever they may be.
Well, the distinguished guests from Lexington, looks like Chuck Smith and Leslie, they've already left. But in their absence, Senator Deeds, we want to still give them a warm welcome in the Senate. So we're going to give them a hand anyway. Let's. Is there any other business to come before the Senate? The clerk will read the report and any announcements on the desk.
Today, Thursday, February 6th, the Committee on Transportation will meet 15 minutes after adjournment, Senate Room 3, Capitol. The Finance and Appropriations Subcommittee on K through 12 Education will meet. Senator Saslaw, what time do you want your subcommittee to meet? It was supposed to meet at 3. The Finance and Appropriations Subcommittee on K through 12 Education will meet at 4 p.m. Senate Subcommittee Room 1, 5th floor, Pocahontas. Senator Saslaw, Howell, Norman, Lucas, Newman, and McClellan. The Committee on Finance and Appropriations will meet at 4:30 p.m. in Committee Room B, Pocahontas. The General Laws and Technology Committee, General Laws and Technology, will meet at the chairman's desk immediately upon adjournment. General Laws and Technology. Tomorrow, Friday, February 7th, the Finance and Appropriations Subcommittee on Capital Outlay will meet at 8 a.m. Senate Subcommittee Room 1, 5th floor, Pocahontas. Senators Deeds, Norman, Howell, Saslaw, Hanger, and Locke. The Committee on Rehabilitation and Social Services will meet at 8 a.m. Senate Room A, Pocahontas. This is a schedule change. Rehab and Social Services will meet at 8 a.m. Senate Room A. The Committee on Rules will meet at 9:30 a.m. Senate Room 3 in the Capitol. This is a schedule change. Rules will meet at 9:30 a.m. The Democratic Caucus will meet 1/2 hour before session in Senate Room 1. The Republican Caucus will meet 1/2 hour before session in Senate Room 2.
The Senator from Northern Fairfax County, Senator Howell.
I rise for an announcement.
The Senator has floor.
This afternoon's meeting of the Senate Finance and Appropriations Committee has more than 71 bills on its docket. And we do not have another regularly scheduled meeting, so obviously we'll have to plan for more. But I want people to know, as we did, I guess it was yesterday, we are going to have multiple blocks. So you may want to come at 4:30 to find out if your bill is in a block and which block it's in. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Howell. The Senator from Roanoke County, Senator Suderline.
Thank you, Madam President, for the briefest of points of personal privilege and emotion.
You have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Madam President. Today is the anniversary of the birth of one of our greatest presidents, Ronald Reagan. I think everyone's familiar with his great achievements, so I won't spend an hour talking about it right now. But I would like to move that when the Senate adjourned today, that it do so in memory of President Ronald Reagan.
There being no further business, I call on President Pro Tem, the Senator from Bath, Senator Newman.
Madam President, I move that the Senate do now adjourn until 11:30 tomorrow, and when we do so in memory of President Ronald Reagan.
The question is, shall the Senate adjourn until 11:30 a.m. tomorrow? And when we do so, in memory of President Ronald Reagan. All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The motion is agreed to. The Senate stands adjourned until 11:30 a.m. on Friday.